Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again,
hey. You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Oh, hello there, dissidents. Welcome one and all to the DueDissidence podcast at our regular Sunday night time slot. This is Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobbular, who I thought realized he had to unmute his microphone. You had that look in your eye, but then I was like, oh, no, I guess it was something else.
hello.
There we go. So thank you guys for being here, 340 strong to start the show. We appreciate that. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We have one show note we just want to make clear very, very quickly for all of our patrons and paid Substack subscribers. My wife has a work commitment that I did not know about when we moved it to Tuesday, and so we're going to have to put the patron show to Wednesday night at 8 p.m. We apologize. I know it's the second time we rescheduled that, which is very unprofessional of us, but we thank you, and we ask you to please bear with us. Wednesday night, 8 p.m. will be the patron show. We're going to waste no time here, folks. I did make that announcement about the Super Chats because we do have, obviously, some limited time. We'll be responding to Super Chats, Russ and I, after the conclusion of this interview. I can't promise we'll have time for a talkback or anything because our guest here was very kind to make time for us tonight. And so I do want to start, of course, by introducing the founder and host of Status Coup, Jordan Chariton. Jordan, thank you for being here tonight. I really do appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you, kind sirs. Your mood music is awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's one of the better tracks we have playing there.
Yeah, that's one of the highlights, I think, of the show is our countdown and our intro before we start talking.
It's all downhill from there.
Yeah, it's like, a lot of Spielberg movies. It's like Saving Private Ryan, the D-Day sequence, and then nobody remembers the rest of the movie. It's like that. It starts with 10 minutes of greatness, and then it's kind of downhill from there. So we were in touch late last year about an article that you wrote about infighting on the left, and you were on leave at the time. You had just had a baby. Congrats. I hope you enjoy your first Father's Day next week. I know that's a big day for new dads. I was a new dad myself 4 years ago. And so we kind of were briefly in touch and then out of touch. And then this last week, a clip surfaced of you on the Twitter machine that we were going to cover. And we thought, since we were in touch with you last year about topics that were kind of similar in nature, we would reach out to you again. So, Russell, do you want to take it away here? Get us started?
All right. So thank you very much for joining us, Jordan.
Sure.
So you wrote an article over the holidays that got a lot of attention, calling for an end to online left feuding. Just going to read a little bit of that. So you spent some time talking about and acknowledging disappointment with Bernie, disappointment with the squad, and expressing your own feelings about that and going around to different protests and actions and how exhausting it can be. So then you finished up here with take your break, feel your anger, disappointment, and exhaustion, check out for a while if that's what you need, and then rejoin the fight. Not a hollow fight against each other based on shallow, wasteful arguments about who is pure and who is fake, but against the plutocrats and their enablers who have turned the country into the United Corporations of America. Ultimately, as Anderson Silva once said, life is about how much you can take and keep fighting, how much you can suffer and keep moving forward. I am ready to keep fighting, hopefully together. That's a very nice sentiment. Do you feel that over the last several months, where you've been attacking channels that disagree with you politically as grifters, assuming ill will on their part for having a difference of opinion in exactly the way that you accuse people of in the article, do you feel that's in keeping with the spirit of those sentiments?
You'd have to be a little more specific. Who are you talking about? Jimmy Dore, others? I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, you mentioned Jimmy Dore and you mentioned some mini-me channels, as you like to call them. I don't know if we're considered one of those. I don't know if RBN is considered one of those. Indie News is considered one of those.
I mean, if we're keeping it real, I think there's a lot of channels that it's just, with all due respect,
sure,
it's a lot of reactionary bullshit. I mean, and I even said in the piece, I'm guilty of it occasionally, not to the degree these channels are, but I started seeing this kind of in 2016 when Bernie dropped out. People were naturally upset, angry, and it's only kind of gotten significantly worse, where it's just kind of this never-ending, in my view, circle jerk of people doing live streams with all caps about the YouTubers they don't like and the tweeters they don't like, which I mean, you can look at my channel. I don't do that. I occasionally tweet if I have an opinion on someone, but I look at it based on what I cover on the ground, and I don't see these channels, particularly the big ones like Jimmy, who I'd be the first one to credit if he was using his massive audience to actually lift up the things that are happening. I mean, I can't tell you how many worker strikes I've covered, or union drives, or tenants unions, and et cetera, where it's not just that like I'm the only reporter there covering it, but none of the left channels are covering it. I mean, none. Workers I've asked that are on strike or union organizing, have you reached out to this show, Yeah, haven't heard back. So to me, I get it. I mean, I think you would acknowledge like doing a show on, owning Crystal Ball, who interview, because you didn't like her interview with RFK, will get more clicks than covering the Amazon union drive. I mean, I think you'd be a little full of shit to say no. But if that's all we're going to do for the next 5 to 10 years, I mean, we're just going to be talking about the same stuff over and over and not accomplishing anything. So in my view, it's not really a matter of, I think there are just specific people that play for clicks. I mean, I don't really want to talk about Jimmy for an hour, but I knowing Jimmy, because I used to work with him and I used to be friends with him, how Jimmy talks now is not the Jimmy I knew 3-4 years ago. And people who know Jimmy will tell you that. I think he's gone on a formula. And I think there's a lot of other channels, frankly, that wouldn't dare criticize Jimmy Dore because they're catering or targeting, trying to get his audience. But to me, the broader issue, not to go on a monologue, is at the end of the day, I mean, when I first really, really got into politics, it was Occupy Wall Street. And being down there, it was revolutionary feel. Obviously, there were issues with it, but I can tell you, not everyone agreed on all things. And I think in the left, obviously, there's core principles. If you start hearing me talk about, we need access to healthcare, cancel me. But if there's too many channels that are so focused on this one's a sellout, this one's not pure, this and that. Meanwhile, Flint doesn't have fucking water 10 years later. I mean, people in Kalamazoo are being poisoned right now. I could go down the list of stories I cover. None of you cover that. I mean, that's just the truth. So to answer your question, Russell, because I guess you were trying to get at hypocrisy. Yeah, I definitely occasionally will say something if I still feel strongly, but it's just not to the degree that a lot of these channels spend all their time. I mean, the amount of time spent on Ryan Grimm and David Sirota and Crystal Ball. I mean, if you're going to say that's not for clicks, we just disagree.
It certainly is for clicks. I would say that, yes, a large part of that is to get clicks and drive traffic to the site. Now, in our case, when we do that, we have a sort of unwritten rule on our part that we only do gossipy stories like that when there's a larger point to be made when it brings up an issue. And Crystal Ball, your friend, has said this herself. She said you draw people in with the sugar and the fat, and then you give him the protein and the vegetables when they get there. In other words, if you can turn a gossipy headline into a substantive piece, not only can you do that, but I would argue, we interviewed Matt Taibbi a few months ago. He said, as a commentator, as a creator, you have a responsibility to sell your story. If you think it's important and think it's worth getting out there, then you have a responsibility to sell it. But in terms of channels that do use clickbait and intra-left feuding to drive traffic to their site, I'll give you a perfect example. You know these guys very well. The Vanguard, they refer to themselves very self-aware fashion as the TMZ Guard from time to time. You were on the Vanguard show, I think, a couple of weeks ago. The reason I found out you were on the Vanguard show a couple of weeks ago is because in preparation for this interview, I've been watching some of your live streams. And you said at one point during the live stream, I got to go soon because I got to be on the Vanguard in a few minutes. So I'm like, oh, Jordan must have been on the Vanguard. So I go to the Vanguard's channel. I'm looking for Jordan Chariton, and I don't see anything. I see nothing. Turns out you were on this episode featured here. The thumbnail and the picture, Vosh attacks the Young Turks, Illuminati, whoever the fuck that is, kicked out of the leftist mafia. No mention of Jordan Chariton. You were there talking about, I guess, some of your recent work, which, again, one of the things I told you in the DM, Jordan, and that nobody could take away from you no matter what they feel about you, is the quality of that on-the-ground work. So here you are, talking to the Vanguard guys, an hour and 20 minutes into the live stream. No mention of Jordan Chariton in the title. No mention of Jordan Chariton in the description.
I don't really get your point. I mean, they're pretty open. They're pretty open that they're just a drama channel, which I actually respect. I respect. And this was actually my issue for a long time with Fox News. I don't have a problem with a conservative channel, but just be honest about what you are. I don't have a problem with the Vanguard saying, yeah, we're a bunch of whatever Beavis and Buttheads in the Midwest and stirring up drama. It's folks that try to pretend they're like somehow anti-establishment, delivering the news and this and that they're just doing fucking bullshit 24/7. I mean, the Vanguard doesn't pretend to be journalists and I mean, I don't have a problem with that as long as you're being honest what you're doing.
So you don't have a problem with the Vanguard taking 45 minutes of your time, and you're a new dad. I've been there. You don't have 45 minutes of spare time as a new dad. There's no such thing as spare time. You don't have a problem with them taking your interview piece that you gave to them, burying it underneath a headline and a thumbnail about Vosh, the Young Turks, and a literal cartoon shit lib. They would rather drum up clicks with gossip over cartoon libs getting fired from bullshit lib shows. You're telling me that you don't feel a need to call them out for gossip mongering, but you tend to want to call a lot of other channels out for doing the exact same thing.
I literally don't think it's the same thing as my point. You're talking about a channel that explicitly says we are a drama channel. We are here to talk shit, this and that. Would it have been nice to be in the headlines? Sure, but
so then why take your journalism to that channel? Why is that an appropriate forum?
In a when you're being suppressed at every single pathway on YouTube, you pretty much go on whatever channel you have to get the stories out. I appreciate that they had me on, and I've been on their show before where I was in the headlines, so it's not really like a big major deal to me that I wasn't. Listen, certain people are certain things. Not everyone's an on-the-ground journalist. Not everyone's a serious journalist. I don't have a problem if they're open about what they are. I think you're like wasting time trying to point out hypocrisy when, I mean, they are who they are. They're not hiding.
Well, you don't.
I've been on their. I've been on their show before. Right. I was in the thumbnail. I was in the headline. I think what you're trying to explain, which I think is a little bullshit, to be honest with you. Yeah, there's ways of, kind of giving the sugar to get people in and then giving them the broccoli. I think the channels you're kind of describing or in league with, I don't really know what you consider the broccoli because I've watched a lot of these channels and they're doing clickbait, including Jimmy, by the way. And they're not covering substantive things. I'm sorry. Maybe you have a difference of opinion with me. I'll be honest. I've seen only a few clips of your show. So I'm not like knocking your show. I think I saw something about a story about the Indian boarding school or something that I thought was pretty substantive. So I'm not particularly like raining on your parade, but I think you're trying to like get me in a gotcha when I don't really give a shit if the Vanguard, I mean, the Vanguard says what they are. You have other channels that are pretending that they're the real leftists and everyone else is a fraud and a sellout and this, that, and the other thing. And they basically like, Jesus Christ, I was on the road to, what was it, a year ago? Every one of you were covering TYT for Jimmy Dore for 4 fucking months. It was embarrassing. Embarrassing. And it was for clicks. Did Aaron Mate in the beginning have a point and was he smeared? Absolutely. But if you're going to sit here and try to like get me that like I go on the Vanguard who apparently you don't like, listen, as long as you're honest about what you are, I say watch whatever you want. To me, they're pretty open that they're not like a serious channel. They're not serious journalists. I think popcorn and entertainment from time to time is fine. So I don't really have a major issue with their show.
Jimmy Dore refers to himself constantly as a pothead comedian in his garage. So he doesn't exactly present himself as doing what you do either, does he?
But I'll answer you. I just don't get like, why do you want to spend all our time talking about Jimmy Dore? I don't get it. But to me,
you brought him up first, my friend.
I did not bring him up. You brought up a tweet.
It just seems like this is very inconsistent with the spirit of the article that you wrote. You have people who have chosen to really capitalize on this very niche left channel infighting, and yet you don't call them out. You seem to call out only people who you disagree with politically, who are not in your lane politically,
but who are the people I'm not calling out? Because you think the Vanguard, I should call them out because they shit talk people?
I have no idea why you would write an article like that and then go on a channel that is built around online gossip, where there's nothing there other than online gossip.
I told you why. Most of your channels don't cover the stories I cover and don't invite me on. It's been a real.
That's not true either. You had a lengthy.
That is true. I've been doing this for 7 years. Wait a minute. It's pulling teeth to get most of the online left to cover the stories I cover, let alone retweet me. So, I mean, I could tell you that is my experience trying to get. I mean, people give Breaking Points, for example, a lot of shit that they cover the stories I cover. They have me on to cover them. They probably cover Amazon labor union organizing more than any channel other than I. So my point is I'm not going to turn down when I don't have a lot of distribution, and YouTube algorithmically literally suppresses most of the on-the-ground reporting I do. I mean, I'm not going to turn down the opportunity to talk about the stories. If I thought like the Vanguard dudes were bad dudes or were doing like unethical things, yeah, I wouldn't go on. But like, I don't see that. I think they're just open and honest about what they are. I think that what I was trying to get at is I think the preponderance of the channels, which is a lot more the Vanguard, we're basically ending up in a circle jerk on a long death march to nowhere based on a game of Survivor of who is the real last pure leftist. That's what I think Jimmy honestly started 2 years ago when he dramatically shifted by basically going on a holy crusade against anyone that dares disagree or has a different strategy than him. And I think a lot of other channels, intentionally or not, kind of pick that up. But to answer you, I mean, I just personally, to me, and I've been consistent, I've said this about Fox for years. If somebody is open and honest about what they are, whether it's conservative, liberal, we're schmucks, we're a drama channel, I respect that because you're not trying to fool anyone. My issue is with channels that are trying to present themselves as news and I'm anti-establishment and we're the real leftists, and they're just doing clickbait. So
okay,
Jimmy
you might not agree, calls himself a pothead comedian all the time. He does crank calls with the guy playing Al Pacino. We call ourselves a couple of shit-talking Jew boys from New York all the time. I mean, I don't know, like, what is this thing?
I don't really get, like, that's not my issue with Jimmy. I've never said that's my issue with Jimmy, that he presents himself as
no, but your issue with this community is that we don't cover enough substantive issues, right? That's your issue. With
well, yes, and mostly just create outrage porn and reactionary bullshit. Yes. So
all right. I mean,
presenting
it's
like that.
Go ahead.
That I mean, you said it yourself that it's for clicks. Yes. So you could try to rationalize it that, oh, well, you know, we do that so that I'm not saying you, others
That's
do
fine.
that.
You can say me. I said me.
I haven't. I honestly haven't watched enough. But you could say, well, they do that just to get people in, then they could cover the real things. I mean, that's just not true. I could tell you, I've been on the ground for years. This is not out of arrogance. It's just the facts. Mm-hmm. It is very rare that besides no one else on the ground, it's very rare that other people are covering this. I don't expect, this is technically an online democracy. People don't have to cover all the same things. I'm not saying you have to cover what I'm covering 24/7. My issue with Jimmy has nothing to do with how he presents himself, whether it be a journalist or a pothead comedian. I think he's clearly made a pivot to pander to the right and certain online demographics. That's what I think.
All right.
It's not that he presents himself as something else. I mean, any objective person can see that Jimmy Dore is not talking the same way Jimmy Dore talked 2 or 3 years ago. If you want to say, well, things have changed, that's fine.
Well, I think things have changed here. Let's get into this. All right. It took a while for us to get to that, right? Because you did say you don't have a problem with the show.
You're the one that brought up Jimmy, to be clear. So
you said his name first. I said, what was the question that Russell asked you? What was the question?
You brought up a tweet, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, no, I didn't bring up the tweet yet. I'm going to bring up the tweet now. All right. So these are the issues, right? So this is sort of a framework, right, for how and where these sort of fault lines lie. And by the way, Russell, I don't know if your StreamYard is fucking up, but the chat is frozen on my end. I'm not seeing any new chats. The chats are going in YouTube. I can't see them. So we're going to have to figure that out.
I have the chat shut off.
Oh, well, open it up. I don't know what's going on. Anyway,
the last one I see is Durga.
Yeah, see, that's been a while. Something's wrong. Anyway, don't worry about that. We'll figure that out afterwards. All right, so here is sort of the tweet that, had some eyes on it, right? Jimmy Dore responding to, I think, Michael Tracy put out a tweet about the Trump indictment and things like that. And you put out a checklist of issues. And these, I think, kind of represents where a lot of these differences lie, right? In the sort of post-Bernie fractured left space, right? So obviously I told you, the one I'm sort of most interested in talking about is the second one down, where you sort of accuse many of us of cheerleading the provoked, which you put in quote marks, which I think is interesting, Putin's Ukraine invasion. That's
actually not true, but go on. I didn't accuse many of us. I've heard Jimmy basically say Putin's not a bad guy.
Well, this sort of, I think, illustrates, I think a lot of those points. So do you want to pick one of these issues and point out where you think these sort of disagreements lie? Hash out any one of them. You go ahead. You could take your pick.
I mean,
take your pick.
I would like, to me, the left that I joined. I mean, can you imagine if a black person was caught on tape a week before they shot up people at a White Lives Matter protest saying, I wish I had my AR-15, I'd shoot up all these people, then walked around at a MAGA rally and with an AR-15 style weapon, lied that he was a medic, was waving around his gun at people, and then killed 2 people and injured 1. Can you imagine what would happen to a black person that did that? I mean, there's no I don't know many I don't want to say real leftists, but I don't know many people that looked at the Kyle Rittenhouse situation and thought, other than Wisconsin's fucked up laws, that was self-defense, that you could basically be a vigilante. And, it was classic self-defense. So that's one. I think that was a clear case of an unhinged teenager who had a God complex or a vigilante complex that created the danger he says he felt threatened by. The point I was trying to make about Ukraine, I mean, I've been consistent. I don't know if you've seen, I've said for about a year, I think we should stop sending weapons to Ukraine. I've also said it's actually nuanced. Obviously, the Soviet Empire was lied to at the fall, when they ended. They were promised that NATO would not go east of reunified Germany. obviously they were lied to, and clearly they have threats. I mean, right on their border. So it to me, I'm not like I hear people saying the NATO left, whatever that means. I'm not a stand for NATO, and I think Russia has real threats. But where I draw the line, if you're anti-war, you should strongly condemn. I mean, I'll tell you what Cornel West says. I think we all agree. We like Cornel West. Cornel West said, an invasion is a crime against humanity. It's Putin's imperial response to the U.S. imperial use of NATO as an instrument of U.S. global power. So I condemn Putin invading Ukraine, whether or not Russia had legitimate threats or grievances. I think the reason that he gave and the reason people like Jimmy gave is absolute bullshit. Putin at the beginning said it's to denazify Ukraine, which is a joke. His speech, which I watched at the invasion, was very nationalistic and bringing back the golden days of the Soviet Empire, the Soviet Union. So I probably think we agree on more than we disagree on Ukraine. I don't think we should be involved in Ukraine. But I'm also have a problem with people that claim they're anti-war that just like lick Putin's balls, which is what's going on with Jimmy and certain others. I mean, I think certain things are nuanced that you don't need to be on like Team Russia or Team Ukraine or whatever. And I think there's broader things.
Have you heard Jimmy say that? I mean, because
I heard him say Putin's not the bad guy. Yeah,
not the bad guy in this
enemy.
Right. In this situation, right? But most of the people that I see comment on that.
We disagree.
Well, but you're saying we promised Russia that we wouldn't move east, and then
the bottom line is you either think it's okay that he invaded Ukraine or you don't. I don't think it's okay, even with the caveat.
I don't think that is the bottom line. I don't think that is the bottom line.
To me, it is. There's a lot of people dying. If you're anti-war, that should be a very important fact.
Of course, look,
I told you before the interview, I don't really cover foreign policy 24/7. So
I know you don't. Yes,
not my strongest point, but at the end of the day, to me, if you're anti-war, you could say no. I mean, literally, so Russia has serious, credible grievances. The United States, frankly, I do think could have done more in terms of negotiations, but didn't want to in the beginning. But to me, to then like almost compartmentalize that, well, no, he had no choice. He had to. I just don't agree with that. And when I hear people saying Putin, who, by the way, is like killed gay people, killed journalists, like he's not a good guy. He's not he's not the bad guy.
I don't see a lot of people say that he is, though. I mean, this is where it gets into straw manning. Who have you seen say Putin is a good guy? I see a lot of people say
literally heard
Putin
Jimmy
is an authoritarian dictator.
I've literally heard Jimmy say Putin's not the bad guy here.
Well, not the bad guy.
The bad guy is not the same as not a bad guy.
Right, and it's not to say he's the good guy. Saying he's not the enemy.
My point is, I don't
agree
with that. I think when you're invading a country, starting a war, I mean, we just don't agree.
Well,
you could think they have legitimate grievances, but we just don't agree with the action of starting a war.
But we don't agree is different from putting this. I mean, you put this word provoked in quote marks as if they weren't actually provoked. And I'm sorry, they were 100% provoked, right? 100%.
Right,
you just admitted that right now.
There's a difference between them having legitimate threats and issues and making the decision to invade Ukraine. You would agree with that, correct?
Sure, I would.
Yes.
But let's flip it around. If a hostile military alliance were creeping up through South America, and then Mexico decided, with the help of a hostile power overseas, hey, you know what? Maybe you should join. How would we react? There'd be no fucking Mexico. We all know that, right? So the world is run by thugs and gangsters. You don't agree with that? You don't think
I would not agree with invading Mexico and killing innocent Mexicans because of that.
Neither would I, which is why I said, of course, the Ukrainian people should not have to pay for the crimes and betrayals of the U.S. and the West and NATO.
Do you really think, you're being honest here, do you really think people like Jimmy, Max Blumenthal's coverage has been balanced and not decidedly like almost parroting Russian talking points? You really think that?
I don't think that they are consciously parroting Rushing talking points to make Vladimir Putin look like a good guy. No, I do not believe that.
Total bullshit.
This sounds like 2003 Iraq war, you calling people Saddam apologists for opposing the Iraq war. That's how a lot of this sounds. And you, by your own admission, you have just said.
I'm telling you, I think you're genuinely either not paying attention to what these people say, or, you know, or something else, because they literally speak from the Russian point of view and basically saying Ukrainians are killing themselves, and
you agree
on Zelensky and all that.
You agree that the U.S. and NATO did provoke Russia?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're parodying a Russian talking point right now, because Russia
right,
will say
but
that
I don't.
as well.
But I don't go out and praise
some
Putin.
of the things you believe.
But who gives a fuck about?
Them.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Who gives a fuck about praising Putin? Who gives a shit about that? The bottom line is, should we be funding and arming Nazis, which we are? The New York Times just put out an article saying, "Hey, the Ukrainian."
I find that really interesting that you say that. Actually.
Listen, Jordan.
Go ahead.
Look, I am of the position that they are Tibetan mystics, so I just want to go on the record.
I think it's so funny, not you, but in general, all this, and by the way, 100% funding Nazis. It's very interesting. All these channels, that's the main thing they focus on, but they never cover in America the rise of domestic neo-Nazis in America. Not just Jimmy, none of these channels. It's a lot of focus on Nazis in Ukraine, which I agree. We should not, I've said for a year, we shouldn't be funding Nazis in Ukraine, but there doesn't really seem to be a consistency. They don't seem to care about the clear rise in white supremacy, neo-Nazism, which I have seen on the ground all over this country at rallies, at protests, militiamen. There's never any focus on the rise of Nazis in America, which I find very interesting for people that care so much about Nazism in Ukraine. But to answer your question, you said, who cares about Putin?
Listen,
I do. I don't like leftists who call themselves anti-war, basically ghosting or shadowing that Putin invaded this country. There's, I don't have the exact number, but I would assume at this point, hundreds of thousands of people that have died, to basically, because we're also anti-establishment and anti-military industrial complex and anti-America, to kind of not focus on that Putin invaded this country under, in my view, the reasons he gave are phony, to denazify Ukraine and these things. I don't think that's a small thing. We just disagree on that. But I agree with you on the core things. I don't think we should be funding Ukraine. I mean, I push back on Marianne Williamson in our interview. I don't agree with her policy.
Jordan, when I sent you a DM, I told you we weren't going to ambush you. I've not cut you off, but you cut me off a few times here when I'm trying to make these points. Number one, with regard to your point about the creeping neo-Nazi threat here inside our own borders, I think
it's not creeping. I mean, it's here. But go ahead.
Well, I would say that the real fascist threat in this country now is the merging of corporate power with security interests with, yes, I'm sorry, the Democratic Party. Stacey Plaskett sent Matt Taibbi an email threatening with 5 years of prison time based on a segment she saw on the fucking Mehdi Hassan show. You tell me that's not the fascist threat? These people have power. Okay? These people have power. These aren't some Nazi diddlers in the backwoods of Oregon, organizing somewhere. That's what I consider the fascist threat here at home. Now, with regard to the Nazis in Ukraine, the New York Times just put out a piece last week saying, hey, you know what? Maybe these Ukrainian fighting forces should hide those Nazi logos on their uniform because it's reinforcing what you just said, Russian propaganda, that there are Nazis, a significant number of Nazis fighting in the Ukrainian army. So yes, there are Nazis in Ukraine. And to me, agitating World War III by funding Nazis in Ukraine, that is what I would call a red line. So if a candidate like Marianne Williamson, who you just said you push back on a bit, and I saw the interview, I think you did, maybe not as much as I would have, but that's fine. We're two different people. Fair enough, right? That is not a red line for you. Why is her stance on Ukraine, and like I said, agitating for a third world war, why is that not a red line for you as opposed to, say, RFK's stance on vaccines? This is a major difference because you said in your DMs to me, hold on one second, let me please
agree
finish
on
the
Ukraine,
question.
though, so I don't get.
But we don't agree on the importance of Ukraine. We don't agree on how important that is, on what priority that ought to be in terms of establishing who we ought to endorse for the next president, right? Who has tremendous power
What do you
this.
mean endorse? I don't endorse politicians.
No, but what you're telling me, you have said that Marianne Williamson is your favorite of the candidates, right? Which means her position on Ukraine.
I said if I had a gun to my head in the Democratic primary, yeah, I would vote for her over RFK or Biden. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Over RFK or Biden. Fair enough. Well, her and Biden are pretty much the same on the Ukraine issue, but RFK is not. So let me ask you something. Why is it that her stance on Ukraine, if you disagree with it, why is that not a red line for you? It's a red line for me. Gun
Because
to my head in the Democratic Party.
I'm not like you, Keaton. I'm not like most of these channels. I believe something. I believe in something called nuance. I'm not an absolutist. I vote on more than one thing. Marianne Williamson supports Medicare for all. RFK Jr. doesn't. Marianne Williamson is talking about a new economic bill of rights. RFK Jr. says there's no bigger champion than a free market than I. RFK, since you're talking about war, went around standing and campaigning for Hillary Clinton 3 times. So I don't vote just on one thing. I'll be honest with you, in terms of my worldview, maybe we're just different.
All right, finish. Sorry,
maybe we're just different, which is fine. Everybody prioritizes different things. My main focus and my main priority is the stories I cover here, money out of politics, environmental genocide, the water poisoning in this country. It's not to say Ukraine is not important, but everybody prioritizes different things. Some people's top priority is the climate crisis. So others are Medicare for all. So when you're saying, why isn't it my red line? There's no track record of RFK actually being anti-war. He's talking, I like some of the things he's saying on Ukraine, but that doesn't mean I don't think if RFK was president, we wouldn't still be droning half the world. I don't think that means that we're going to, as he talked about, put a dollar number on cutting the military. I haven't heard that. Okay. So just because he's saying the things you like on Ukraine, no, it's not a red line that Marianne doesn't. I didn't agree with Bernie on all things. I think he should have been ran on reparations. This is what I have a problem with. It's this shit pushed by channels like yours that we have to cancel people, and this person's a sellout, not a real leftist.
That's really not what we're
crazy. You're saying, why isn't this a red line? Why isn't this a red line?
It seems like you're very selective in who you throw this at. You interviewed Marianne Williamson?
Yeah.
She's got a 30-year history reported out of abusing staff. Did you ask her about that?
She's got a 30-year history of abusing staff? No, just like I don't
according to articles.
Just like I don't
like
ask,
the LA Times.
Right. Just like I don't ask male politicians who are notorious for being verbally abusive and dickheads.
So you feel it's sexist.
To me, that's not.
So you believe 30 years of almost identical reporting on her.
I honestly have not read the article you're talking about. I read the Politico hit piece. I knew in 2020 there was complaints about her being verbally abusive, this and that. That's why, unlike what you said, I'm not endorsing her. I'm not telling people who to vote for.
But did you ask a fair question to ask her? Because not one person.
No, I don't.
Touting her, and I'm not saying you're touting her.
Because I don't.
Crystal is, Kyle is. They have never asked her this question. You've never asked her
about her being
about
verbally
a 30-year history. Not just verbally abusive. She is described as being violent, as being extremely emotionally unstable. Mike Nichols left her AIDS charity and started a separate one because of her behavior.
I'm genuinely open to what you're saying. I've just never seen any evidence or that she's been violent to anyone.
Well,
I do see evidence that she's
you're not going to see it. You don't work for her.
I do see evidence that she's a control freak. I do see evidence that she lashes out at staff. I've covered a lot of campaigns. Most of them do. Even Bernie, believe it or not.
This was reported about her before she was even a politician. 25 years before she was a politician.
What's the question? Why isn't that a red line for me, or why didn't I ask her about it?
Why hasn't anyone asked her about it? And why don't you talk about these people like Crystal and Kyle who just had her officiate at their wedding, never asking her about this in an interview? Is that not journalistic malfeasance?
To not ask her about reports that she has yelled at people?
No. These are not the reports. The reports are that back behind the scenes, she is extremely unstable, that she is emotionally unstable. Mike Nichols, the director, picked up and started a separate AIDS charity 30 years back to get away from her because of, according to them, abusive, emotionally unstable behavior. This is going back 30 years. This wasn't just a political.
Genuinely, Russell, like I'm being honest, if I read what you're talking about, I've read like 2 stories on Marianne Williamson, who was mostly anonymous staffers, and I've covered enough politics to know you take those with a grain of salt. I know the people I spoke with who told me the issues with her. But if I would have read that before and they're saying she's violent, this and that, I genuinely would have asked her about that. I don't know what story you're referring to. But to me, and we haven't even gotten to this because you guys have wanted to talk about the Jimmy stuff. But to me, the broader thing is another issue.
We haven't talked about the Jimmy stuff. It's been like 20 minutes.
Quite
I'm
a lot
trying
of time
to talk
on
to
Ukraine.
you about Ukraine. And I want to talk about more about Ukraine, actually.
Well, we agree on
ahead.
Ukraine. So
well,
we
no, we don't agree
for
on
the most
Ukraine.
part.
No, we don't agree on Ukraine. And I can tell we don't agree on Ukraine because you keep defining the Ukraine issue as one of simply Putin and Ukraine. A lot of people on the left with an international analysis, which was something sorely lacking from the Bernie movements, as I've come to realize since those Bernie movements, is that Ukraine, and these are the words of Fiona Hill, who just recently gave a big sort of red pill lecture on this. She's hardly a dissident voice in establishment foreign policy circles. The Ukraine war is a proxy between the West, NATO, the G7, and what she referred to in the speech as the rest of the world, the global South, the BRICS alliance that is emerging. It's a power struggle between Western hegemony, in other words, this fake concoction of capitalism and democracy, which really creates this sort of neoliberal fascism, and the rest of the world that sees an opportunity now to create an alternative economic model, governmental model, philosophical model to that the U.S. has tried to impose not only on the rest of the world, but on us here at home most of all, which is why, in my analysis of things, we will never fucking get Medicare for all as long as this empire functions as it does and asserts its will on the rest of the world, which is neoliberalism. That's what this really is a proxy conflict for. And so when I see people saying, well, yeah, I mean, we should have Medicare for all here, but, you know, the Ukrainians, they're fighting for their freedom. So, yeah, whatever it takes, we should keep giving them money, whatever it takes. It's a defensive war, and we have to side with them, which is what Marianne says. And like I said, I'm not saying, Jordan, you endorse Marianne. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
But I'm agreeing with you. So I don't get what you're saying.
But what I'm saying is if she's on the wrong side of that issue, that is a major breach of what I consider and what many in our sort of, you know, doorknob network here
but can
at
I
Doorknob
genuinely
HQ
ask you,
consider
I just,
meaning
I
to be on the left.
I genuinely want to ask, because I genuinely don't really know why. What do you think is accomplished by all of these channels focusing so much of your time on who you vote for or who you endorse? Or none of that is going to accomplish anything. We don't have to wait.
Okay.
We don't have to agree on whether the Ukraine thing is the red line for why I should personally vote for Marianne Williamson where you don't. I think it gets twisted because I've always told my audience, vote for whoever you want. I don't tell people who to vote for. I don't think that's the role of a journalist. But it's just crazy to me that so many people, not you, but so many online leftist audiences that were rightly pissed off about being voter shamed and gaslit in 2016. You must unite. You must unite. Then again in 2020, I think it's subconscious, but they just turn around and do the same thing. It's like, oh, you voted for Biden, so I don't give a shit who you vote for, Keaton. And if you have such a problem with who I vote for or who I don't personally, have a problem with who you vote for. But you've spent the last 10 minutes on trying to convince me why I should.
No, what I'm saying is,
Jordan,
what I'm saying is, hold on, Russell, please, if I could just, please, sorry.
And by the way, as it stands now, if Cornel West is running Green Party, I would vote for him.
Okay, that's great. That's great news. What I'm saying is there is a lack of emphasis on this issue, which is a big picture issue of capitalism versus, for the first time since the end of the Cold War, facing a formidable ideological competitor. on the world stage. Now, that is much vaguer than it was during the Cold War. It was capitalism versus communism then. This is capitalism versus something else, versus a rallying of the rest of the world against Western hegemony. And I think for a left to be so unconcerned with that is very, very alarming. And I think that the non-doorknob faction of the left seems to not give much of a fuck about that. I don't hear... listen, you have an operation, you do wonderful work in East Palestine, you've done wonderful work in Flint. I understand foreign policy is not your beat. That's fine. And I give you credit, and I sincerely mean this. Thank you for coming here and talking about this, because certainly Crystal Ball wouldn't give us the time of day, right? But this is very, very concerning to me, and it's concerning to a lot of people. That's why RBN coined the term NATO left. I think it's a brilliant term, because it represents a left that is incurious and uninterested in this major global battle between capitalism and its ideological rival. How could you just not care about that to the point where you swap that out to rally behind this, sort of platform lifted from the Bernie campaign? Yeah, we're going to have student debt forgiveness. Yeah, we're going to have a Green New Deal. We're going to have Medicare for all, but we're going to have 900 military bases around the world, and we're going to fund World War III. I mean, it just doesn't compute. It doesn't make sense.
Let me ask you a question then. So based on this, and I don't know, I really don't know if you're supporting RFK or not. That's neither here nor there.
No, we're not. We've said over and over. Fuck.
No, we were against that from the beginning.
Fuck RFK.
But by this same logic, how could anyone support RFK who went around campaigning for Hillary Clinton?
We agree.
They should not support. I agree with that.
We're with you.
I think
you have a lot of channels.
Because
you have a lot of channels covering RFK, like somehow he's anti-war and anti-establishment and this and that.
Well,
that's my point. And by the way, can I just?
He is anti-World War III. He's anti this war. Okay. Jamal Bowman says he's anti-war in general. I
didn't hear. I don't know about you. I don't think your channel existed. I also didn't hear these channels talking when Trump was president and he was arming Ukraine. So it seems to me a lot of these channels have kind of selective when they're focused on who we're giving weapons to or not. It seems to me a lot of these channels are quite quiet when Trump and Republicans are doing a lot of the same things, only worse. But then when Biden is doing it, then all of a sudden it's the moralistic World War III. Obama did not arm Ukraine. And I don't have a lot of nice things to say about Obama. But I just think it's interesting to me. There doesn't seem to be across the board consistency. And I'll give you an answer. Keaton.
Sure.
And this is my life. Right now, I have 13 text messages going just from today between Flint, Kalamazoo, East Palestine, and another story I'm working on. I'm on deadline for 2 investigative stories. I'm only one person, and my focus is on the communities I cover. If you think that's a cop-out, whatever. But
I don't think I never said it's a cop-out. I do not.
And I've literally told people who wanted to do an interview with me on I think it was Yemen or something else. I said, honestly, I don't know enough, and I just don't have the time to cover it. It's not because I don't care or I don't think it's important, but my focus, because there is no other outlets out there really covering these stories, I focus on these stories. Most of my day is not on camera or live. It's talking to sources on the phone or doing glorified therapy to residents in communities that we're not even talking about now. But as far as I'm concerned, just like, for example, water is a super important topic to me. We have water contamination in this country. You probably aren't aware that right now all the hedge funders are buying up water on the hedge fund and stock market because they know there's going to be a shortage. That's a passion of mine.
I am the resident financial analyst. I'm aware.
Right. So my point is, some things that I find, how could you not care about this, Keaton? How could you not be covering this? This is the most important thing. That might not be your most important thing.
The difference is, Jordan, the difference is I don't insult you about issues of water online. Okay?
But you're going to say,
but I'm talking about shit like this. The left has become Putin stands. They're cheerleading Putin's invasion. You're telling me that foreign policy is not your beat. It's not your passion. It's not where you are most knowledgeable. That's fair enough. You do fantastic work.
But you're conflating two things, man.
I'm not conflating anything. I don't pick fights with you.
I don't respect leftists who basically are giving or propping up or making or glorifying Putin, who in the words of Cornel West, illegally invaded another country.
I don't know what leftist you're talking about. I don't know any leftists
I named a
who
few.
glorify
Jimmy Dore, Max
Putin.
Blumenthal.
To be anti-war is not to glorify the war side. This
But how
is what
can you
they
say you're anti-war? How can you say you're anti-war when you won't condemn the invasion?
This is what they have pulled on anti-war people in every war that's ever been, right? If you were against the Vietnam War, you were supporting the Viet Cong. Of course, as we demonstrated, you yourself agree that NATO did antagonize Russia, right? Well, you could say that's a Russian talking point because the Russians will say that as well. It doesn't mean you're pro-Russia. It doesn't mean you're pro-Putin. Most of the people I hear talk about this say Putin is a dictator, but we provoked him. Both things can be true at the same time.
Yes, I agree. But that's the people I'm pointing out, which I maybe you just not watching them enough because I've seen
Max Blumenthal. I can't speak to Jimmy Dore.
Okay.
I've never seen him say, and you yourself
Well,
say.
I've heard him say these things. So I mean, you say tomato, I say tomato. When I watch Jimmy Dore, he sounds like he might as well be on RT. And I like a lot of things about RT.
Again, that's just a sneaky way of putting it because that's always the smear that the Hawks put out against the Doves every single time.
If you are anti-war, I don't think it should be hard to condemn Vladimir Putin invading Ukraine. It's as simple as that. We could agree on
Vladimir Putin, saying you condemn Vladimir Putin is not a political statement. A political statement is what should our role as a supposed outside party, even though we're really not an outside party,
we agree
on proxy war that we are fighting. What should our role be?
We agree on our role. I don't think we should be involved. I've said it over and over again.
Well, do you think we should not be involved, or do you think we should be involved to broker peace? Not if we were just not involved, Russia would just roll right through Ukraine because Ukraine would probably keep fighting, and we would say,
I don't think America. I mean, even if it tried, I don't think it could broker peace because Putin does not want to sit down with America.
Well, that's not really true.
I don't think America, frankly, wants this war to end, as I'm sure we would agree.
Russia and Ukraine were going to have peace talks. Boris Johnson flew out there to sabotage them in April of 2021 after the invasion.
It seems for the most part, we're agreeing on America's role. You're peeved that I'm saying I have a problem moralistically with people basically minimizing.
Well, that's the thing. You're expressing a moral objection, but you're not offering a political solution in a way that I think addresses the overarching conflict of this, which is what I've said a few times before. I don't have to say it again.
What is your political solution? I don't understand what you mean. I'm not offering
I think we should broker a peace talk, and I think we should agree to the 3 terms that Russia laid out at the beginning of the war, which were independence for the separatist regions, a neutral Ukraine, and recognize Crimea as Russian. Those are the terms that Russia laid out before the war. Notice Russia never wanted their flag flying over Ukraine. They never wanted a Russian flag over Kyiv. They did not want to take over the country. Those were their 3 terms. We could have very easily met those 3 terms. We could have easily told Ukraine, listen, this is not worth a world war. This is not worth the destruction of your country. These are the terms we have to meet. We're going to meet them, and this would not have happened. You have cities that are in shambles now that would not be in shambles had we met those terms. Why did we not meet those terms? And how is it not the crime of the century that we allowed this catastrophe to happen? And we are only in the very, very early stages of it.
But that's where we disagree, man. I mean, you're making it seem like these cities are in shambles just because of America. Ukraine did not invade itself. I mean, we could agree that there was provocation, but these cities are not in shambles because, like, America invaded Ukraine. Like, that's not the definition of a proxy war.
But you could argue that these cities are in shambles because we prolonged the war for our own
That's my
interest.
issue. When their understandable anger at America's imperial might and the military-industrial complex, which I share with you, I've read a lot of JFK books. I know quite a lot about it. Blinds you to Ukraine didn't invade itself. So Russia could have legitimate threats, grievances, and this and that. But when you say the cities are in shambles because of America, I don't agree with that. That to me, that's the problem. When and I'm not putting you in the category of Jimmy, but when people kind of just compartmentalize and erase Putin's role in it, I have an issue with that. Okay. It sounds like you think that's neither here or there. I do. I also, by the way, I just want to go back to something. I mean, I've been on the road. I can tell you there's many different forms of fascism. Standing Rock was fascism, right? What's going on in Cop City right now, it's fascism.
Of course.
But I don't think you're intentionally trying to minimize it. But when you say, oh, stupid, neo-Nazis from here or whatever, I have been to events that like literally white militiamen like have attacked leftists. I have been to things.
Who was president during Standing Rock? Who was that?
Obama.
So
I condemned him then. I mean,
okay.
But what is the whataboutism? You think there's no fascism being spearheaded by Republicans?
All right, I'm
by
happy to
Trump?
talk about this, but hold on. I have to put a button on that previous point because hold on. Let me just put a button on that previous point if I could.
I'm telling you, it's not theocratic.
I know you came back to the domestic politics, which is fine.
In America.
I understand why you came back to that because it's more in your comfort zone by your own admission.
No, we're just going in circles on Ukraine. I agree with you for the most part on Ukraine.
I've told you, what I articulated there, without lauding Vladimir Putin, because I do not laud Vladimir Putin. If what I articulated there you agree with, I can tell you that is the position of this faction of the left. Have I watched every video? Can I tell you for certain that there aren't channels and personalities who may sound like they are more sympathetic to the Russian state or speak about Putin in more flowery terms? I cannot tell you that, okay? I have enough time to do this show, take care of my kids, and drive people's food to them at lunchtime, okay? That's why I don't watch much of this anymore. What I can tell you is that is the position on the left. If next time you get into this on Twitter with any of these people that you come at and that come back at you, that is what we think. I can articulate that point of view without lauding Vladimir Putin, and I think moving forward, try to engage with them on that level rather than smearing them, quite frankly, as Putin stands. That's not a productive way to talk about this, and I can tell.
But I literally I'm saying I think Jimmy is acting like a Putin stan. I'm not referring to you or others. You're like magnifying a tweet I put out, making it seem like I'm saying this about the wider left. I'm not.
Well, you told me in the DMs, you said there's this phenomenon in the left that a lot of them have become Putin stans. That's what you said.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Fine.
I'm naming names. I mean, I don't know
who.
How much? Jimmy Dore, Max Blumenthal. I really respect Aaron Mate's reporting. Sometimes I think he has blinders on and only sees the Russian point of view. I don't think he's doing like propaganda for Putin, but I do think there are some people who only view things through the Russian lens. And I just don't agree with that. I don't like, we could go in circles about it. On the fundamental core issues, I don't think we should be involved. I honestly don't think America has an interest in brokering a peace. If we could, I think that would be great. I'd be fine with those three terms. But I think Putin wants more than that. I think he wants to disband him into NATO, which is obviously not going to happen.
I want to disband him into NATO too. And you know who also does? Cornel West. NATO has been used as an instrument of Western imperialism.
I'd be happy as a claim with
enforcement
that.
of capitalist hegemony since its founding. And yes, I do think we should disband NATO.
But it seems like, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like the main issue you're having is that this isn't a bigger priority to me and some other leftists. I mean, I respect that because there's things I think should be a bigger priority to others. Sure. I mean, for me, it's just like, I'm only speaking for me. For me, I could only like focus on the things that are within my purview. I'm not an expert on foreign policy. I mean, maybe if I had more time, I'd get into it more. I really don't like to cover things I don't know a ton about. I know enough to know the history of what we talked about, the lies to the Soviet Empire, this and that. But to me, my main focus is on covering stories that others are not and trying to help these communities. And I would just say, I think that you're referring to things as a smear, this and that. I don't see you have the same criticism for channels that might be kind of in your orbit that literally, I mean, 24/7, they're just spending their time just attacking other YouTubers and labeling people and this and that. How is this going to accomplish anything? I mean, to me, that was the point of my piece.
Well, who are you talking about?
Who are you talking about?
Jimmy has literally gone on first TYT, then Kyle Kalinske, Mike from the Humanist Report, David Dole. I mean, Jackson Hinkle before he went whatever
Jimmy Dore,
direction.
You're going to tell me, and first of all, who else? You call a lot of these channels Jimmy Dore mini-me channels. So far, you've referred to him first.
Hang on, the channels that you just named, you feel are Jimmy Dore channels? Secular
No,
talk?
that's not what he's talking about.
So what do you say?
I mean, Jackson Hinkle before the direction he went, RBN. There's a couple others. I forget the name of it. It's got some people in Chicago, I think.
RBN organized a general strike summit. RBN is raising funds to build a library in Michigan.
Okay,
RBN does a tour for the poor.
Right.
Okay, what do they do on YouTube is my point. I'm not saying
the General Strike Summit was on YouTube.
Have you looked at
I'm not saying there's nothing.
Their YouTube page? Their YouTube page
Yes,
is
I have.
full. And you came out the
then
other
we're
side,
looking at two different
that's what
things.
their page is about? Their page is
If you look at their
full of
YouTube page,
union coverage.
if you look at their YouTube page and their live streams, I don't watch it, but just I see the things pop up, and you're telling me the majority of what they cover is poverty, what do you say, tour for the poor, and it's not interpersonnel bullshit every day, then we're looking at two different channels. I mean, I don't know what else to say. That's just not factual.
What did I tell you at
and
the
I credit,
beginning?
by the way, I credit Rome and the stuff he organizes. I know he's done stuff in Flint and elsewhere. So it's not all like there are good things. My wider point is I think you're being a little rose-colored glasses. These channels, for the most part, do interpersonal drama.
It's not interpersonal drama.
10 videos on David Sirota.
I think this might be the difference right here.
What do you think it is? You think in our time the main focus should be on like Ryan Grimm and David Sirota and breaking points?
Ryan Grimm. Hold on, let me just answer this.
That.
When Ryan Grimm appears on Brianna Joy Gray's show and tries to gaslight Shama Sawant, which is a terrible idea, I don't recommend anyone try that, about how the squad did not betray their base during the rail worker strike vote, yeah, they're going to cover that. We're going to cover that. And fucking right, we're going to put in the headline that Shama Sawant owns Ryan Grimm. That's why people watch it. But we don't talk about
that's the fundamental disagreement we have. Because I actually think if we want to accomplish things on the left or whatever we're calling this these days, and actually, I don't know, organize, try to somehow pose a threat to the establishment, we should be covering the workers that are striking, the union drives, the tenants unions, the workers that are being exploited all over this country in warehouses. Not, Ryan Grimm, gas. And by the way, I don't agree with Ryan Grimm.
Hold on a second. You use that, what you do, if you're us, and I'm not going to speak for RBN or Jimmy Dore or any of those other people. Chat came back, by the way, folks. So we're going to be very behind catching up to super chats because our functionality just came back.
By the way, I do have to go in I could do another 10 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So my issue is, if you we did a segment. One of our patrons alerted us to the Indian Child Welfare Act, right? We did a segment on the Indian Child Welfare Act. We said indigenous rights are under threat, and I tried to sell it. I tried to get people to give a shit about it. I put indigenous rights, capital letters, under threat in critical SCOTUS case. As of now, that has 274 views. Dog shit. Now, if there were some debate about the Indian Child Welfare Act on CNN or MSNBC, and I could put X person owns X person on the Indian Child Welfare Act, that would have gotten 3,000 views. We have a responsibility to sell the story if we think it's an important story. So I thought the rail worker strike was a very important story, and if framing it as Ryan Grimm gets owned by Shama Sawant, which you don't think he did, I think he absolutely did, that got 7,000 views. Those are 7,000. Jordan, please let me finish. I promise I will toss to you. I promise I will toss to you. If that gets 7,000 views and I put it some other way and it got 300, what service am I doing to the rail workers by not getting people to care about the story? This is show business, man. We're on YouTube. This is a show. Russell and I are theater people. It's about conflict. Conflict is what gets eyeballs. And if you think what you're doing is important, you have an obligation to bring eyeballs. Now, you cannot lie. You cannot distort. You don't want to do things that are purely personal.
Like the Illuminati story that was on the show you appeared on?
Right.
We didn't cover that.
Right.
What's it
about?
Don't
give a shit about
it's
a fucking cartoon libtard getting canceled.
There's no politics behind it.
Keaton, let me, I don't mean this condescendingly, but I just want to explain it to you.
That's fine.
I could literally put myself naked in a thumbnail, okay? Or, dollar bills with a gold tooth in a thumbnail, okay? On a subject, something to do with Flint. and sensationalize the headline all I want. Trust me, I've tried. And it's still going to do shit. You know why? Because YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and all of these platforms, and there's data behind this, there's research behind this, suppress certain topics. So it's not about selling. I'm not an idiot about marketing or selling your story. I've been doing this for 7 years. There are certain topics, there are certain genres that are not recommended on YouTube, no matter how you sell it, no matter what thumbnail you put up, right?
I don't believe that. I don't believe that to the extent that it would throttle you.
It is true.
Okay,
that is the truth. So
if
how
the
I
topic
view
is
it,
railroad strike,
how I view
let's say
it,
that's the topic, railroad strike. YouTube's going to throttle the railroad strike?
Yeah, they have.
Okay, so then
did
why
it on
did
my
my
channel.
video about Shama Sawant handing Ryan Grimm his ass about the railroad strike, why did it do really well? We don't have nearly as many subs as you. You got 140,000. We're sitting here. We're hoping to get to 10,000 by the end of the night.
I was about to finish. YouTube rewards.
Right.
Conflict, reactionary stuff,
Okay,
all
perfect.
caps,
There you
food
go.
fights, this and
Fine.
that.
Sure.
If I actually believe that the channels that are, doing 10 videos on Ryan Grimm, we're doing it to get people in the door to cover like the Amazon workers trying to unionize or anything of importance. No, they're not.
If you watch
No, they're not,
Jordan,
No,
if you
they're
watch,
not.
Jordan,
That's absurd.
It's not
That's
absurd. It's not absurd.
total
If you
bullshit.
watch an
Just like
RBN
Russell's
live
saying,
stream,
he looks at
they're not.
RBN.
If
Please.
you watch one of their live streams,
I've
they're going to
watched-
talk for 2.5 hours about substance. They're not devoting the whole 2.5 hour stream to he said, she said bullshit. They are not. We've been on their shows. We do a show with them.
Then we see the world in very different
You
ways.
just said you don't watch the show.
Well,
you
you're
said
not-
you base
you're
it
not
on the
looking
thumbnail.
past
I've seen some of their live streams when I watched. I mean, it was mostly just like raging, screaming about Ryan Grimm, David Sirota, breaking points, putting stuff out there that I don't even know.
So Jordan, let me
But like,
suggest
I don't know why we're talking so much about Jimmy RBN. My whole point is the actual momentum on the left right now
because Jordan
is
is
workers fighting
from
back,
your
and
reporting.
nobody actually covers it.
All right, Jordan, your reporting, even amongst people, and we're really not amongst them who have like a beef with you. We've never had a nasty exchange with you, nothing like that. Everyone respects your reporting. You are distracting from the good work that you're doing with a lot of these internecine fights that, ironically, you are engaging in for no apparent reason. I don't know why you're getting into these things.
That's maybe where we differ. I'm not going to like self-censor myself or like tweak my political views or try to like not actually say what I believe. I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but I'm saying for me, I mean, I've had opportunities to go in a certain direction where others that are doing fabulously well now. I think a lot of those people have rightly seen there's a understandable anger on the the left, and they're playing into that. I'm not going to change who I am or change my views or what I believe. If I think that Jimmy is, for example, like standing for Donald Trump, who clearly he didn't read that indictment, but that's neither here. I'm not going to like tweak what I think or hide what I think to fear alienating Jimmy Dore viewers. That's just, and I think people with integrity do not do that. I mean, you mentioned the Vanguard, for example. I mean, for a while, they would even admit they were kind of started their channel, like kind of catering to Jimmy Dore's audience, this and that. They never attacked him. Then because they truly, genuinely saw some problems, they went after him and they stalled. And you want to know what?
They truly, genuinely saw Kyle Kalinske appear on their channel and saw an opportunity to suck off a different teat. That's what I think they saw.
Well, it hasn't worked then, right? I mean,
it's worked really well. I mean, they scored the invite.
And this,
but you're right, it hasn't worked.
But in terms of distracting,
in terms of gaining an audience, it hasn't worked because that is a dead
but the truth
philosophy.
The truth is, if certain people online, if they're gonna like not follow someone's reporting on important topics because they don't agree with their political opinions, then I wasn't going to get them anyway because I don't really agree with that. I don't agree with that sentimentality that, I'm not going to watch somebody if I don't agree with their political takes because even if they do good reporting, like I'm not going to twist myself into a pretzel to make sure people agree with me 24/7 so that they'll watch my reporting. I mean, it's I'm not going to do that.
Fair enough. But Jordan, let me suggest something that maybe you haven't really thought about. When I look at a commonality among people who are less on the Dem exit side, I would say that's fair. When I look at a commonality between Kyle, between Crystal, between yourself, between even Brianna Joy Gray, between Katie, you're all pretty well off. You are all doing all right. I know you might not be making as much money as
you know my net worth.
You do.
I'm making. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I make 40. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I make $45,000.
About how you're making 40 to 50,000 less than you did before.
No, I'm telling you, I make $45,000 a year right now. So if that's well off to you,
so that okay, all right. To say that you're making $40,000 to $50,000 less than you did before, you understand a lot of the people that you're criticizing don't make $40,000 to $50,000. So when you are saying that, look,
but you just called me off without knowing anything.
Okay, withdrawn. The internet has it wrong. Okay. Yeah.
I literally saw somebody sent me an article that I have a net worth of $23 million.
I never saw anything
on me
like that.
suing the
I am going by the fact that you said in your article, I'm making $50,000 less.
When I got fired from TYT, I was making 80, which I earned by busting my ass. Excuse me, busting my ass for 15 fucking years, working overnight shifts, working weekends. Nothing was handed to me. So this caricature you have of,
but he didn't say anything was handed to you, Jordan.
Well, you just said one thing that has in common is you're well off.
Well, you're well off compared to us. You're well off compared to a lot of the people that you're criticizing. And for somebody who spends as much time as he does, very sensitively.
But why is it finish. Why? Wait a minute. Why is it offensive that I have a different political view on things?
It is not.
How is that punching down at you?
It is not offensive, but it is offensive when, as in an exchange you had a little while ago with RBN, I will take you at your word. You didn't realize what you were responding to. You didn't realize you're responding to them when you started talking about channels that support white supremacy. I take you at your word on that. But you didn't leave it there. You doubled down. You start attacking them, saying 75% of their channel is all gossip.
Well,
and that you didn't mean to attack.
I'm genuinely asking you, what are you talking about? Are you talking about that tweet thread when I was in the hospital?
with Mike Figueredo?
So I'll tell you. I'll tell you legitimately what happened if you're interested.
Working class black people, and this is part of why I assume
I don't
you're doing well
RBN.
because I can't imagine.
I'm sure they'll do a week's worth of videos.
Somebody who doesn't have money acting like that.
I'm sure they'll do a week's worth of videos, but I'll just tell you flat out, I don't respect them. I don't agree with you. I look at their channel and it is very clear that it's outrage porn. They might do some things on the side. I respect what Rome has done, this and that, but I think it's laughable when you're saying you look at their channel and it's not nonstop interpersonal.
We've been on the channel.
We've been on the channel. I watch the channel consistently. I think it's very smart and substantive.
We talk about issues. We talk about economics.
But can I ask you a question? It seems to me that because you don't like Crystal Ball is a good example. Because you don't agree with all of Crystal Ball's political views, or you don't agree with who she's supporting, or this and that, and because I think it's publicly available, she's pretty well off. That you have a problem with Crystal Ball. But I mean, as far as I could tell, Crystal Ball and Breaking Points, from what I've seen, covered, other than Status Quo, covered the Amazon workers union drive more than any other channel I saw. They cover worker issues. They cover worker exploitation. There's things they cover that I don't agree with. I don't agree with every view of them. Personally, for me, I don't know if I would have had Marianne Williamson officiate my wedding, but it's not my wedding. But it seems to me that there's an inconsistent standard you have here, because you guys take umbrage with like me, RBN not being my cup of tea, but then you guys go and shit on channels you don't agree with, and somehow that's fine. So it's just be consistent. I
think, I gotta tell you, you're not consistent. You're not consistent.
The whole Keaton, like, give them the sugar in the headline and then reel them in. I actually think you guys do a decent job of that from what I've seen. The channels I'm referring to. No, I don't agree.
Okay, well, that's fine. I mean, you don't have to agree, but I'm just telling you. and for the
Right.
audience, whoever's
But
watching.
Russell made an assumption that like I'm well off and we have these things in common. I
Because
have
you
no
act
idea.
that
All
way.
right, look,
Because
let
you
me
act
just
that way, Jordan. I really
Okay.
appreciate the reporting that you do. I can't imagine.
So I
If
act
you
that
did
way
it,
because I have different political
Jordan, I
takes
let
than you.
Finish. Let me finish. No.
This
Well,
is crazy.
look, the fact that you would jump into a thread without knowing what thread you're jumping into, realize that you called a channel full of working class black people supportive of white supremacy, and then immediately, okay, fair enough, you didn't realize what the thread was, you apologize, man. Instead, you double down. I didn't realize I was talking to RBN, but now that I am 75%, who acts like that, man? Like, how could you how could you address them like that?
Well,
so this is why, honestly, that alone made me say this guy must have money, because I can't imagine somebody who doesn't being
seems
so insensitive to the dynamics of that situation. Now,
Well,
that's my own assumption.
First of all, I don't personally like view things in terms of you can't give your opinion about somebody
That's
or a
not
channel
giving your
if they're-
opinion. That's
if they're
saying-
black
that's saying
or white.
something
Like if I don't respect someone, I don't care if you're
in
purple.
that context. Sure.
That
You
they
made a
cover
mistake.
75% bullshit.
That you
That's
don't follow
offensive.
up with an apology, and then maybe you get into that later on.
But
You
what
didn't-
is the
you
white
didn't even offer
supremacy
an
you're
apology.
talking? What is the white supremacy you're
You
talking
jumped into that thread, not realizing what it
Wasn't
was.
there
I'll
a
take you
thread
at your
between
word on
Mike?
that.
Wasn't there a thread between Mike?
You
Well,
jumped
wait a
into
minute.
it
Wait,
without
I'm
knowing
literally,
what the
I'm
show-
legitimately
let
asking
Jordan
you,
set
what-
this up. I'm
Go ahead.
curious.
I'm legitimately asking you, what is the white supremacy you're talking about?
You
presumably
said,
from Mike from the Unionist Report?
certain channels will go after certain things while ignoring the white supremacy growing in the country, and then afterwards, RBN made it clear you're talking to them.
I think they do ignore. I think you
feel
ignore a lot of the
RBN
white
ignores
supremacy.
white supremacy?
No, I'm talking specifically that there are rising neo-Nazis, which I've talked to you about. There's rising political violence in this country. I'm not saying they talk about white supremacy. I would never, as a white man,
why didn't you just apologize for saying that to them? Of all people to say that to, why didn't you?
I don't know what you're talking about. But I'm legitimately asking you, what are you referring to?
In this thread with Mike Figueredo that you jumped into, and you claimed later in the thread,
I literally did not
that you
see
were in the
what
hospital. You didn't realize what the beginning of the thread was.
I mean, that's true.
I take it at your word.
And then for days, I had it all out
But
online.
because instead of apologizing, and then I'm not even saying after an apology, don't continue the conversation. You didn't even apologize. You just doubled down. I didn't realize I was talking to RBN, but now that I realize, you know what? 75% of your channel is gossip. That's how you come back after you just called a bunch of working class black people ignorant
I did
of
not
white
call
supremacy.
them white supremacists.
By accident, you did.
You're quite
significantly
conflating that I called working class black people.
By accident, you did, which you
with all
acknowledged
due
later in
respect,
that
before I
thread.
go, Russell, with all due respect, before I go,
Mhm.
because I know they've kind of invented this phrase that I'm exploit black people for profit, which I'm not making much profit. Literally 9 out of 10 stories I cover is in black communities, brown communities, or poor white communities. I'm not, oh no, they called me a white Jesus, was it? Or a white savior complex? I don't even know what that fucking means. But for those that actually know me and know what I cover, I could be covering things that make me a lot of profit or get me a lot of views. I choose not to because right now I'm covering a story about a poor black community in Kalamazoo that is being poisoned by a paper mill, that literally 2,000 black infants died in 2015 from this paper mill that Democratic politicians let do whatever they want. So, I mean, if RBN wants to call me this and that and the other thing.
I've seen RBN express respect for your reporting. So I don't know what that was.
I've never really seen that.
I was just researching for this.
Next time I'd love to come on and actually talk about stories and topics and issues in America or foreign without doing so much time on these channels, because I don't think you guys try to gotcha or anything like that, but I think we spent so much time talking about RBN, Jimmy, and other channels.
Well, Jordan,
can I
explain that?
Because I tweeted something over the weekend.
No, Keith.
Because I reached out to you originally to talk about your left infighting article. That was
Right.
the original.
I don't
And
personally
Jordan,
like.
I would love to walk away from this conversation with less of that tension, which unfortunately it seems like we didn't really accomplish. That's really my objective, to get it out of the way. Because
I just think we have a different worldview.
We do.
Yes,
that's fine. Well, so all right, we have a different worldview. We understand we have a different worldview. So if we acknowledge that we have different worldviews, then maybe politically we are simply on different sides, and maybe we can agree to disagree about that, rather than insinuating that people who disagree are acting in bad faith and grifting for clicks and they're Putin apologists or anti-vax.
That's been my whole point.
Kyle Rittenhouse stands. I mean, why do we have to charge everything in that way?
But that's been my whole point.
But you're doing that.
It's a strange way of making it, I have to say.
I think you're looking at things in terms of if we have a different worldview on certain things, or that we're on different sides. We're not going to compete with the well-oiled machine that is the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, corporate America. If the standard is we all have to breathe the same fire and have similar views on every single thing. If you're, it just seems odd to me that you view how I am smearing certain channels, but you don't have the same standard for these very channels that we could disagree on the percentages, spend a whole lot of time going after other people over what I think are like some disagreements, but doesn't mean they're on opposite sides. If we could all agree that maybe sometimes we engage in hypocrisy or shouldn't tweet things, isn't that fine? I would agree. I engage in hypocrisy sometimes. But the point is, we don't have to agree on every single thing. Ryan Grimm, for example, or Crystal Ball might have a different take on the dem enter versus dem exit or this thing.
Sure.
But if we live on our, if the view of that is we have to live on our own different islands, we're never going to accomplish anything, because the movements that I have seen that have been successful were not predicated on we all have to agree on every single thing.
We went on Larry Sharp's show last week. He's a libertarian. I don't agree with him on everything.
But I'm talking in general. Like, I personally think, and I would put a lot of this, frankly, I think Jimmy started this mindset for the most part, that just basically ascribing to people that they're sellouts if they're not where you are at that very moment politically, or they don't have the same exact strategy as yours. I was for forced to vote, for example. We covered it. I don't personally cancel anyone that wasn't. I don't ascribe bad motives to them. I think the left, and I think the left has really become this game of survivor. Who's the last pure leftist standing? I think RBN plays into that. I think Jimmy plays into that. I think, to a degree, I don't think intentionally. You guys seem like, I said this to you before we went on, you seem genuine to me. But if the standard is going to be, we have to strongly agree on, I don't know, Ukraine, or we have to strongly agree on dem enter versus dem exit. I just think that's absolutist thinking that's not going to get us anywhere. I personally, even though I don't have a lot of respect for him, I would work with Jimmy Dore if Jimmy was going to use his platform to elevate, when I was at the John Deere strikes or the Amazon worker strikes or Flint story or this and that. I would work with people I don't necessarily agree with, or I personally think maybe don't have the purest motives. But to me, all I see online is just a lot of, I just want, if you'll allow me before I go, I thought this was a really good description. I just saw it before I came on. I don't know if you're familiar with Olayemi Aloran.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she tweeted
we
something.
call her the least nauseating of the leftist mafia. That's what we call her.
Great.
Yeah.
She tweeted out, sorry, I can't put it on screen. There's a very small but specific contingent of the internet left who do nothing but go around angry commenting at all the leftist commentators who they don't believe are real leftists. And I asked them this, why don't you go watch what you do like? I wouldn't say shut the fuck up. She said, and shut the fuck up. If you have
you ever seen their show? Like, of all
show?
people, the leftist mafia. Have you ever seen their show?
I've seen some of it, but just let me finish. If you have a viewpoint or a school of thought, go advance it. Hate reacting to and attacking everyone else who's sharing their different perspectives does not accomplish anything. I don't know, we're so obsessed with proving you're the leftiest leftist in the room, but bro, chill. I mean, that's kind of what I've been saying now for 2 or 3 years. I think you view it more as it's substantive, these disagreements. I don't, if they are, they're not being expressed that way. Because I don't know how you could call it.
Jordan, allow me to complete my thought from before. I
Sure.
do feel like the reason a lot of the people who are more Dem exit are working class or from working class backgrounds or working class upbringings
That's
is
also
because they don't, the ones that we deal with ourselves, we're all from those kinds of backgrounds. Jimmy worked construction. I don't think it's an accident that people from that background have a perception of a lot of what's going on now as existential, as very high stakes, and they feel a need to marshal their resources in a direction. So I think some of what you see as left infighting legitimately, I believe you see it that way. It's actually a fight over where to bring limited resources. And a lot of that struggle is, no, don't put money into Marianne. And in our case, and in RBN's case, no, don't put money into RFK. Don't put money into the Democratic Party generally.
We're not even saying put money into Cornel West at this point.
You recently had a segment where you said that was nihilistic. And I think a lot of people with perspective,
what was nihilistic?
People who want to Dem exit, who want to burn it down, that it's nihilistic.
That's not what I said.
And you
That's
did
not what I said.
I just watched it. I mean, if you want
what
to clarify
what I'm getting at,
isn't it nihilistic to have a primary
that aren't
with
true.
Oh, okay, you can correct me. Let me just finish. Your own reporting has been great on the DNC WikiLeaks, on Donna Brazile. You covered the great Iowa Pete Buttigieg missing votes capers. You covered all of that. So a lot of people naturally, partly because of your own reporting, ironically enough, don't want anything to do with the Democratic Party. Not in a primary, not in any way whatsoever. So you don't feel that's nihilistic.
No, what I feel is nihilistic, personally, is Nina Turner is a perfect example, right? Nina Turner, I think both of her campaigns, she didn't run the strongest campaign. But let's talk about the first one, right? Jimmy was doing this and many others were doing it. We're trying to steer people away from supporting Nina Turner or getting involved. Because she was running as
I'll own that.
Because she was running as
who the fuck we were at the time.
Right.
Go ahead.
Because she was running as a Democrat, right? Okay. So number one, the only other option in Ohio was independent, because Green Party is not on the ballot, MPP is not on the ballot. And in that district, just facts on the ground, this is not YouTube land, facts on the ground, it went for Hillary Clinton by 35 points. It went for Biden by around the same. It has went for establishment Democrats forever and ever. It's a pro-Democrat, vote blue no matter who district. That's just what it is. I've been there a couple times. So in my view, because the world is not perfect, do I think for the left, it would be a better thing to have Nina Turner in Congress than the shill that is in there now? Nina Turner being imperfect, even if it's in the Democratic Party? Yes, I do. We might disagree. Wait. That is what I believe. But I also don't have what I think is an absolutist view of we could only go third party or only go Democratic Party. Because the truth is, Russell and Caden, it doesn't fucking matter. Cornel West can run Green Party, build momentum. I think a lot of people, they have the answer for the Democratic Party is corrupt, but they don't have an answer for, do you think it's not they're not going to try and rig it against Cornel West equally, if not worse, if he gets momentum, if he runs in Green Party?
Sure,
wait, let me finish.
Sure.
Look what they just did to Matthew Ho in North Carolina.
Yep.
There's this naivete, I think, good-natured, that the answer only is third party because the Democratic Party is too corrupt. The system is corrupt. Whether you Dem enter, whether you Dem exit, whether you run upside down hanging from a chandelier, the system is corrupt.
Yes.
For ballot access, period, a lot of the control is Democratic governors and Republican governors through the Board of Elections. They are shadowing. So for me, last year, I think I interviewed more third-party candidates than any channel that I know. I have a whole playlist. My issue is not I'm against running third party. I'm against this and that. For me, I think the broader issue is the structural issues, and Steve Grumbine and I talk about this all the time, are not going to be changed through electoral politics. That doesn't mean don't try, don't vote.
Well,
I
it
don't agree
can
with
mean
people
don't
that say
try
that.
in certain areas where you are doomed to fail from the start, and that's
But
my
I don't
point.
agree with you on that.
I know you
which
don't
we can
agree
talk
with
about
me
another
on-
time, because I don't know any movement that has ever succeeded in any category that, because it didn't go their way in 2016, we're talking, and then 2020.
Listen, this is a conversation.
Let me finish.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know any movement that, and I think a lot of people kind of, I don't think he intentionally did this, but got caught up in the Bernie moment and thought we could just do this in one turn, or maybe another turn, this and that. It's not, to me, the most important thing is not about whether it's running in the Dem Party or a third party. It's, do you have the right candidate running? Bernie is why he lost in 2020, not the Democratic Party. Bernie made major fucking mistakes. Yes, they tried to
that's
rig it.
part of where we disagree.
Yes.
Well,
Bernie made major mistakes at critical
Oh
moments.
no, we agree with that. We just
But you
don't
wanna
think
know
the Democrats
something?
would
But you
let
wanna know something?
anyone
The bottom line is
who's going to
and
flip
this-
over the tables of the money lenders win.
And this is fact. This is fact. We have gotten the closest thus far. I don't care if it's running through the Democratic Party, running through the Marshmallow Party, doesn't matter. We have gotten the closest to winning the nomination through the Democratic Party. I personally, at this point, would go for Cornel West, because I just believe in Cornel West, and I like that he's actually bringing up the corruption. I like that he's calling Biden corrupt. Bernie wouldn't do that. Marianne Williamson will not do that. It's not as yes, the Democratic Party is corrupt, but if you don't have a candidate willing to borrow from Trump, not the racism, not the bigotry, but willing to fight and go for the jugular, you're not going to win. You're not going to beat a political mafia and cartel like the Clinton machine.
Nina
like
Turner
the Biden
had,
and Obama machine.
Nina Turner had a 35-point lead 6 weeks before the election. The first time she ran, that was erased by James Clyburn, Hillary Clinton endorsing Shontel Brown. This is why you cannot run in the Democratic Party, because the established. I'm not wrong. Those numbers
You're
are
wrong.
absolutely right. Those numbers are 100%
No, you're right about the numbers. You're not right about why she lost.
Okay,
because I was there, so I would hope you would allow the reporter who was there to tell you.
I know, because there was Israel lobby money against her,
No.
and they fell for
No.
all this and blah blah
No,
blah. The
no,
bottom line
no.
is okay. Go ahead. But then I
Okay,
have to.
what-
You have
what
to
was-
let me finish my point. Just go ahead.
Because idiots like Jimmy Dore, who don't know anything about politics,
It was his fault she lost.
No, I'm telling you.
All
He
right.
said she should have run scorched earth against the Democratic Party. Why she lost? The truth is the comment about Biden is a bowl of shit.
Yeah.
It was all over billboards. You could not turn your TV on for longer than 7 minutes without seeing that ad. And in the exit polls and data, that was a massive issue for Democratic voters. She lost by 4,000.
So then fuck
Wait,
Democratic
wait.
voters. That's why you run third party.
That's
Fuck
it.
them. If they
That's
can't
it.
absorb the truth, which is that Joe
Then you're
Biden is
gonna
more
lose.
than half a bowl of
Then
shit. She
you're
was being
gonna
very
lose.
diplomatic by calling
Then
him
you're
half a
going
bowl
to
of shit,
lose.
by the
How
way.
can you?
Then
how
you're
can
going
you?
to
How
lose.
can you
Excuse
run?
me.
You're
How can
going
you
to
run?
lose then.
All right, this is
You're
too
go-
much for
the
now.
da-
We're
data-
not going to be able to get into all this now.
The data shows, this is just data, whether you like it or not.
All
The
right,
most
go ahead.
reliable voters in America are age 65 and older.
Yeah,
most-
but Jordan.
I mean, this is the truth. I've covered elections for years.
The truth is, we are going nowhere unless we flip the board entirely. You cannot
Well, you're
flip
not
the
gonna
board,
flip the board
by
doing
kissing
circle
up
jerks on
to
YouTube.
fragile Democratic voters who can't take Joe Biden being called
You're
half
not
a bowl of
going
shit.
to
That is
flip
a road
it.
to nowhere.
You're not going to
Nowhere.
flip the book with a YouTube industrial complex attacking each
Well,
other.
well,
And I can
well,
tell you-
Jordan,
and I can
you're.
tell you, I
But
can
the
tell you,
YouTube, Jordan, let me just make this. Okay, this will put a little bit of a button on things, okay? You said, would you rather have Nina Turner in that seat or Shontel Brown? Nina Turner all the way. We agree. We're all in agreement with that. But there's a third
well, we
option
weren't,
in that.
we weren't, because you told people not to get involved and not to support
No, what
her,
I
so
would
that's
tell
not
you
true.
is, rather than support Nina Turner in a race she cannot and will not win,
But that's
build
also
a
not true,
fucking
but go ahead.
library in her district, like Rome from RBN is doing. You help some kids learn
well,
how
you-
to read.
you
That
yourself-
is how you would make change in that
Didn't.
district.
Didn't.
Way more than
But I
investing
can
in
tell
a
you
doomed
because
Nina
I
Turner
was
campaign.
there and you don't know because you weren't there. She lost by 4,000 votes in the dead of August. I went to the volunteer offices.
I know.
There was a mass deflation of volunteers and energy
Mm-hmm.
in large part because the biggest YouTube channels with the biggest audience told people not to get involved because she wasn't running scorched earth against Joe Biden in a pro-Democratic district.
Do you really think the average voter in a Democratic primary is watching us? Or even watching Jimmy Dore?
You know what actually matters in tight elections? Knocking on doors, having volunteers. That's how AOC, I'm not a fan of now, won. Wait,
Go ahead.
If you lose by 4,000 votes, when the biggest microphones in progressive media are saying don't support them because they're running for as a Democrat in a very pro-Democrat area, you don't have a good ground game because you don't have the volunteer. You aren't. You are getting clobbered. I think it was 5-1 towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can make up 4,000 votes with a ground game, energy, excitement. If certain people just they don't want to ever vote for a Democrat again, that's fine. I'm telling you this, and I'm going to say it to your face. You're being naive, Keaton. You can't unilaterally flip the script. If anybody could get the 100 million non-voters out, if anyone had an answer for getting the 100 million non-voters out, we'd all be living on an island
Jordan,
with Medicare for all.
You yourself say that there are not going to be solutions within the electoral system.
That's
that we need to focus on outside movements.
Most of my channel is covering unions, worker strikes, tenants unions, environmental stuff. I don't cover elections.
So what are you bitching at Jimmy Dore for not helping, gather people into the Nina Turner campaign? Maybe
I'm not bitching at Jimmy Dore. I'm telling you, you're wrong.
Our time.
I'm telling you,
you're saying,
other
but
people
for
to
the
waste their
quote unquote nihilism coming from us doorknobs, Nina Turner probably would have won because she would have made up those 4,000 votes.
Yes,
that's your theory. Okay, so then you're saying
energy on the ground matters.
If we were more involved, she'd have won.
Yes.
Okay, if we made up 4,000 votes,
the first time, not the second.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but I think what that analysis also misses is that the Democrats had a deep war chest too. If they sensed that we were making up those 4,000 votes, they could pour another $50 million into that race like that.
And how did Cory Bush win? Then how did AOC win? Then how did the I don't think they're doing their jobs, but
that was actually what I was going to bring up. You yourself in your reconciliation article and in general have been very critical of the squad. Why? A lot of the reason that nobody got involved in Nina Turner's campaign is we could see what happened when we elected these people.
I don't see the world.
We got Cory Bush in there. We got AOC in there. We might as well have elected Nancy Pelosi. AOC has become one of the most dangerous threats to online speech in Congress. Somebody that I campaigned for in Astoria when nobody knew who she was.
Because I could only speak for myself. I don't ascribe to every candidate who might run with a D next to their name because these people have disappointed me. Cancel them because they're just going to be like that. I happen to think, based on what I've seen of her, that if Nina Turner had got elected, she would not be a magazine cover mama bear Democrat. If you don't agree, that's fine. But when we just kind of project our disappointments with the squad, with Bernie, and we say anybody that runs as a Democrat is going to be that way, what makes you think if we get a victory of a third party candidate, do they have a magic shield around them that's never going to corrupt them or never going to put pressure on them in Washington, D.C.? I think people are so focused on Dem versus third party. You need to create a mass organizing movement to defeat a well-established, highly funded duopoly, whether it's in the Democratic Party or the third party. That's why God bless Cornel. I don't like MPP as a shit show. So the point is, Keaton, when you're saying 4,000 votes, well, if she was making momentum, she was up 30%. They clobbered her with a tsunami of $4 million in 2 weeks, a month. And she had no energy on the ground. I'm not saying it's all Jimmy Dore's fault, but if you don't have the ability to canvass, if you don't have the ability, the boots on the ground to call, to do the calling, to do the digital organizing, you're probably going to lose up against all that money. And then, by the way, Biden the last week stepped in and endorsed her, which they then ran on commercials. To me, it's not as much Dem enter, Dem exit. If people don't want to vote Democrat, that's not what I was calling nihilistic. Let me be clear. What I'm saying is I personally think if you're going to just any candidate, even one with a great life story, even one that has Sarah Nelson, for example. I don't know if you know her. She's the head of the flight attendants union. Done great work for years. She has been on the thorniest side of corporate America, this and that. There was thoughts of her maybe getting appointed as labor secretary. Obviously, Biden wasn't going to appoint somebody with that kind of economic viewpoint. Sarah Nelson, there's rumors she might run for Congress or something like that as a Democrat. I think it is short-sighted to disqualify somebody who has shown that they will fight, who has accomplished quite a lot for working people. The working people you're saying that are only Dem exit. I meet a lot of people that are canvassing on the ground for local candidates in the Democratic Party that are in shambles in poverty. So I think that's inaccurate to say it's only Dem exit people that are the working poor. But anyway, I'm not going to not support or not cover or not vote for Sarah Nelson because she's running as a Democrat. I mean, I just think it's a corrupt party. So is the Republican Party. The Green Party has corruption. If people want to build up a third party movement, by all means, do it. But to spend so much of our time trying to voter shame people who still vote for a Democrat once in a while, or still are trying to work within the Democratic Party. If your mentality is it could be all or nothing, I don't share that mentality. I will still interview third-party candidates. I begged Cenk. I had to pressure him into sending me on the road in 2016 to cover Jill Stein's campaign. I went and covered the Green Party convention. I'm not like simping for the Dems, which is another stupid thing RBN likes to, you're sheep herding people into the Dem. I don't give a fuck who you vote for. I don't tell people who to vote for. My point is, if we have this black and white thinking, we're just going to be talking about the same things in 5 years, in 10 years. If we actually focus on the things that could actually get us power, which is the union drives, the workers' strikes, the tenants unions, the mutual aid, which I credit RBN, the mutual aid they do, the actual, I don't see any of us talking about the fact that we're just protesting around the same fucking blocks over and over again, chanting the same shit without organizing an economic boycott. We're not going to have a general strike overnight, but there is no protest movement that I know of that is adding an economic component. So I just think people are so focused on running in the Democratic Party, the third party, that Bernie could be president right now. Congress would be blocking Medicare for all, and the executive actions he would take would probably be, some of them or most of them would be reversed in court through all the lawsuits. Cornel West could get up to 20, 30%. They will try to rig it against him, and they will probably succeed. Until we cut out you're canceled, or you're a sellout, or you're a fraud, and actually come together. And I would even come together with people I don't particularly love or want to have a beer with. We're not going to get anywhere. And the last thing I'll say, I respect what you're saying, Keaton, but I think I don't think you're intentionally doing this. I think it's intellectually dishonest to say the channels and the people I'm talking about, they're just getting the sugar in the headline to give people the substance. I don't think most of these channels, if you actually watch a lot of their stuff and look at the proportion of what they cover, are focused on the right things. Because I can tell you,
I do watch their channels quite a bit. Quite a few of them are in the chat right now. I watch Savvy's channel quite a bit, JB's channel quite a bit.
I'm sure I gave them content for a week. God bless.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why we did this. Where this is our grift with them. Right?
I'm sure they'll be going on for a week.
Table from this here, right? But anyway, but I'm telling you, I watch their content a lot. It's extremely substantive. They design their headlines that way for the same reason we design headlines our way, because we want to watch it. And here's the final point I'll make to you. Okay. And I'm not saying you were handed anything. You earned that job at TYT. You did a fantastic job at TYT. That thing where you stuck the microphone
made
in
TYT politics.
Right. And that when you gave Donna Brazile that line, that's a legendary moment in this space. Right. But when you started your own channel, when you went to open your own shop, you had a built-in fan base because you were starting as TYT's star reporter who went and opened his own shop. How many subscribers did you get overnight when you started your channel? Had to be tens of thousands, did it not?
No.
How many?
I think in a month we had 6,000 subscribers.
We've been at this for 4 fucking years. We've got
part of the reason you seem to part of the reason
we haven't been at this for 4 years.
No,
part of the reason which you seem to minimize is when you do actual substantive reporting, which I could dress up Amazon union strikes with salacious thumbnails and headlines. These things do not get views on YouTube. So if you're telling me, well, Jordan,
we know, we understand. The point is, people.
Well, you were
knew
giving
who
me the
you were.
birds.
You were
You're giving me the
starting
birds
as-
and the bees.
You were a household
Jordan,
name
look,
in this
a lot-
space when you started. A lot of people weren't, and so we
Well,
have
if
to
people-
sell our
listen,
shit. We have
and
a
not-
responsibility to
when you
sell our
look-
shit.
Eden,
When you
yeah,
look at a
Eden, the
channel
bottom line
like
is, I don't particularly care if people don't want to watch our reporting because I'm not, or I criticize Jimmy Dore, or I'm not a fan of Jimmy Dore or certain people they like, then that's their decision. I mean, I think that's short-sighted because it's the stories that matter. But I think if people, like Russell was saying, you're distracting, I'm not going to twist what I actually believe, or if I think there's certain people that are manipulating audiences or putting out false information, and I feel strongly enough to tweet it. I don't really do videos on Jimmy Dore, but if I feel that, I'm not going to not say my piece or speak my mind out of fear that, oh, it's gonna ruffle the doorknob feathers, and it's usually the same exact people attacking on Twitter when you dare criticize their leader. I'm not going to twist myself to try and not lose audience or try and win back certain people. I'm going to do what I do, which is the reporting, whether one person watches it or a million people watch it, and I do my best to sell it. But the truth is, when you have tech platforms that in their algorithm, what they recommend is based on, like we said, conflict, reactionary, food fights, more infotainment. I made a choice a long time ago to not go that way. I'm not criticizing anyone as a bad person for doing that, but I'm going to cover these stories and they're going to get the audience they get. That's why, people say, Jordan, you sold out the breaking points. Well, when a channel has whatever they have, 950,000 subscribers, and they're willing to elevate reporting on Flint and the other things I cover, I'd be crazy. And I respect the fact that they care enough because they also help me out with some of the trips, not all the funding, but some funding in our deal. You'd be crazy not to do that. I mean, I'm not going to do it with Alex Jones' channel, but I just think, to me, I think what you're getting at, Russell, is like, just be quiet and don't give your opinion so it doesn't distract from your reporting. I'm not gonna share my opinion. And the tweet, by the way, the tweet, because you focused on that. My point in that tweet was, if you actually looked at what Jimmy Dore said, he was giving off, I mean, unless you read it differently, he was basically saying this indictment against Trump is just the Biden DOJ going after Trump. If you are an objective person that actually read the indictment, which I can promise you Jimmy did not, Donald, any other person would have been locked up for what Donald Trump did with the classified documents. And this is somebody who's been on the record that Hillary should have been indicted. I think Hunter Biden should be indicted. I think it's a disgrace that the bankers who tanked our global economy haven't been indicted. But what Trump did, if you actually look at it, is significantly worse than most of the things I just described. And when you have leftists, I believe, trying to gaslight or twist or try and spin things as like, oh no, it's the Biden DOJ going after Trump. That's why I felt strongly about tweeting that, knowing there's a little element of Jimmy could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and his fans will defend him. That's fine. But I'm not going to not give my opinion if I feel strongly on something because I'm afraid that it's going to piss off some leftists or deter them from looking at my reporting. I personally would not, if I think someone does important stories, I personally have the ability to say, yeah, I don't agree with them on every take, or I think some of their takes suck, but I value the reporting, so I'm going to support them. They don't have to financially, but I'm going to watch because no one else is covering these things. If other people, because I'm not on the same page with them on all things politically, that's fine. I mean, everybody can watch whatever they want. I just think we should all maybe take a step back and say, if people don't agree with us on everything politically, maybe we shouldn't ascribe that they're like liberals or sellouts or frauds or cowards. Maybe we just don't agree on all things.
But aren't you doing that? Aren't you
doing
that with channels you don't agree with? Look, you keep mentioning RBN, and we've brought up RBN as well.
You're the one that brought up RBN and Jimmy, by the way.
Extensive. I brought it up first. They do extensive mutual aid. So now, what think?
Which I've given them credit for.
You have.
What
do you think a YouTube channel that's trying to set up a certain point of view on politics, which is what most of those segments are about. We've been part of them. That's what they're about, just like we do. Yes, we bring them in with the headline, but then we discuss policy. And they're doing mutual aid. They're building libraries. They're fighting against police brutality. What do you think a low budget YouTube channel trying to help the community and trying to build outside left power, what do you think it would look like?
But
so why would you attack them?
I'm genuinely trying to ask you, how are you or them trying to build?
They're doing a lot more than we are. They are doing a lot
I'm
more
genuinely asking, and this is not unique to them. I'm just talking about everybody. How are you trying to build genuine left power when for a year, none of you were covering having the workers on?
We were.
Wait.
I always see your cameraman when I cover something in New York. Your guy is always there. Not with the
like
beard.
Jimmy Dore is a perfect example, and I'd be the first one to credit him. I literally asked the Amazon workers that I was out at the plant, have you reached out to Jimmy Dore, who at the time I didn't like? Said, yeah, hasn't responded. I asked the John Deere workers who I was out there covering their strike in Iowa, freezing my ass up. Have you reached out to Jimmy Dore? This person. Yeah, we have. They don't get back. Not RBN or any of these people. But how are you genuinely trying to achieve outside power if what you're saying is true, which I don't think it is? They're bringing people in with the sugar, but then covering substantive things. Most of them, if you had Christian Smalls on once, that was it.
Jimmy
but other than that,
Smalls on, didn't he? I'm pretty sure he did.
But my point is, none of them cover what at the time I believe was the biggest fight on the left. If we're talking outside electoral politics, none of them were involved with it. None of them, were pushing their audience to get involved. None of them were covering it in the weeks before. After they won in Staten Island, I doubt most of your audiences knew very soon after they had a second election in Albany. They couldn't get any media coverage. None. You know who the only channel that covered it other than I? Breaking Points. So when we're talking about it, we don't
have those resources. I'm not talking about going out there.
I'm not. What do you mean find that out?
If the media is blacking it out, it is very difficult.
Well,
you just
if
said
you don't have,
there was no reporting on it. You just said with the Albany, we covered Staten Island. You're saying nobody covered Albany.
No, it exists. Breaking Points covered it. I covered it. It exists. There's articles on
both stations with resources. You have resources. What were you doing 3 years into your career, Jordan?
But what are you talking about? Breaking Points didn't go there.
No. I didn't say that.
Right. So what? You don't need resources to surf out what's going on in the world.
Sometimes you need resources to know about certain things that are not being reported.
I think you're making excuses. I think
we covered
a lot of these things are out there.
RBN covered Amazon.
The John Deere strikes are out there.
In Albany.
I'm talking about it was out there for a year. Striketober, the workers' strikes. It was the most momentum. It was the most momentum the left had in a very Scar takes over the Lion King type of experience in the Biden age. And most of these channels, aside from maybe one or two videos, were barely covering it. I could say the same thing when the John Deere workers were out there. I know because I covered them. I don't expect people to, go out there and report on the ground. It's not a requisite thing. You don't have to do that. But I can't tell you how many stories I've covered where there's actual things happening and there's a chance of victory. And I go online and it's like the food fight between leftists and YouTubers and this and that, which I get your point. You're saying I do too, and this and that. I don't think it's anywhere fucking close to the people we're talking about, but that's besides the point. My point is to actually achieve worker power. And this is why I love what Shama Sawant is doing. You actually have to get involved and you actually have to, through the small independent media channels we have, cover it, get the workers on, put out the push people to fundraise, push people to donate, push people nearby to get out there for the protests, shame the corporate media in not covering it, not cover it once in the middle of a live stream and move on. That's my point. That's what will actually accomplish things, not this 24/7. Well, we didn't like Ryan Grimm's interview with Shama Sawant. I didn't, to be honest with you, I didn't see it, but we didn't like. So we're going to cover that. I just think there seems to be a
the rail worker strike was thoroughly covered on all these channels that you're talking about. I mean, that whole episode
we had people
because
from the rail strike
because Biden crushed it. That's the only reason it was covered.
Yeah, because it was
they don't cover the worker. They don't. I agree. But my point is, they cover.
I went to Grand Central. I was standing right next to your.
No, he's not talking about us. I know.
They cover things when there is a Biden angle, when there's a way to shit on the Democrats. They don't cover things when there's when it's not sexy. When, in your words, it won't get clicks. Well, if the goal is to actually achieve things, I could tell you, Jimmy has a big enough channel that if he covers union videos or whatever, it won't get the views that his COVID stuff gets. It'll get 50 to 100,000 views. That matters. I could give you a perfect example.
I remember, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong about this. I'm pretty sure he interviewed the guy with the beard who was in the union, the More Perfect Union ad. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure. I think those worker events get a decent amount of coverage. You get a big bearded guy in the My Perfect Union. I don't remember.
Can I just give you an example before my wife divorces me because I have to go?
No, I hear you. I feel that.
But I told her an hour, and we're now 2 hours.
I know. That's the story of my life these past 4 years.
I'll give you an example. I just went to Kalamazoo. I've been covering this paper mill that's been poisoning this community for 6 months, but this was the first time I went. My tweet that I did with an 8-minute video did pretty well. It got like 50,000 views. But through my partnership with Breaking Points, they were nice enough to put a longer video up there that got 60,000 views. After that video, the governor of Michigan, the Michigan Health Department, and several other entities were shamed and dragged all over Twitter because it's the first time any platform with a big audience actually covered it. I mean, I was out there, but it was on their channel. 2 days later, a health study that they've been dragging their feet for 3 years. They've been dragging their feet for 3 years and they wouldn't release it. Two days later, they finally released this health study acknowledging that this plant is releasing toxic levels of hydrogen sulfide. The health department told one of the main activists, "Oh, we've been seeing the show you've been going on." I'm not saying this to give myself kudos or breaking points. I'm giving you the example that I don't expect people to cover doom, gloom, and the non-sexy things at all times. But if you could get, I know you're not to this level yet in subscribers, but if you could get some of these bigger channels to actually cover things that are important, not just cover them in passive, but actually get their viewers involved. I've seen it. When I was at TYT, the same thing happened. They didn't market me at all, but I had a bigger audience. I would give my audience phone numbers to mayors, city councils, this and that when they were doing the wrong thing. They'd fucking flood those numbers. And a couple days later, a week later, they reversed their decision on something. So my point is, I think we might not agree on everything, but I hope we agree that if you want to give people sugar, this and that to get them in, fine. But make sure, bad phrasing, make sure you're giving them the broccoli, because maybe we just disagree. I personally, of all the issues in America and around the world, I don't personally think if Ryan Grimm is a real leftist is on the top of my list. I don't personally think if Crystal Ball went too hard on RFK is on the top of my list. I think, and if you're saying that people if you're saying that, well, they just do that to have this
husband and dad do another. He's got.
I was going to say something nice.
When you're saying that they're doing that to have the substantive issues, then maybe we're listening to two different shows, because I don't hear a lot of substantive issues being discussed on most of these shows. So with that,
all right. So Jordan, let me finish with something nice. Let's end on a nice note. One, awesome. I have said on the show many times and taken a lot of shit for it, which I think this is something you can relate to. I've said Breaking Points is the best in the business if you're looking to replace cable news with a show that has a fundamentally populist point of view. I think a lot of the backlash is around the Marianne Williamson thing, which I think a lot of people who like Crystal have been disappointed by the way that has been handled. That's where a lot of that, I think, is coming from. But even now, when I take shit for it, I say, if you're looking to replace CNN, things like that, and you want a populist point of view, breaking points, because they do cover Ukraine. They do cover unions. We see that. Also, what I think is really tragic about some of this antagonism is that you are doing this vital, important reporting. And
Thank you.
I know you're working all the time. I've used your stuff as sources. I think we all have, right? If there's anyone who's going to want to promote these stories, and I think this is where maybe there's some disconnect, it's not that a lot of these channels that you seem to take exception to don't care about those things. They do, for the most part. I'm not saying there are no just gossip, bad actor channels out there, but most of them do care about it. Because all of this antagonism has developed on Twitter, I think between you and certain other people, and back and forth, and you know how that goes, and it's kind of escalated. Whereas you would be a great resource for a lot of these channels to have on. And I think a lot of these channels would want to promote the kinds of things that you're covering, but there's this conflict that doesn't need to be there. And I'm not going to say people don't inflame it from the other side, but I'm suggesting that maybe you don't have to take the bait, and maybe you don't have to start shit either.
All right. I from one husband and dad to another, I'm getting nervous. I know that look of Jordan like this. I know who that is. I know what that's about. So
It's like literally to my side.
I understood. Don't believe me. I've one husband and dad to another. I've been there. I will tell you this, Jordan. If you think this,
by the way,
well,
I've seen like 3 or 4 of your videos. I do think you guys do a good job. So it's most of whom I'm talking about is not you.
If you think this went well for you, I give you permission to download this off YouTube, post it on your channel as Jordan Chariton owns DueDissidence Grifters. It will do great numbers, I promise. Okay? So feel free. All right? Cool. That's your prerogative. Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate it. Have
Thanks
a great
for giving us so much of your time, Jordan.
Absolutely, man. Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, that was fun, wasn't it?
All right.
All right, everybody. So we have a lot of stuff that we want to talk about here. We got 1,000 people. First time ever breaking 1,000 in the chat. So thank you guys all very much for that. We appreciate you all. And despite the differences that we articulated, but there were plenty, like I said, we do appreciate Jordan taking the time and being willing to come here. Because there's more than we could say for a lot of people.
That was such a battle royale. Even my wife watched it. From Australia.
No, I knew when he starts looking like that, I know exactly what that is. When I get that, because I'm sure I do that sometimes on the show. I used to do it more when we did shows during the daytime. Then my wife would be like, all right, come on, we're eating now. Let's go, wrap it up. When we used to do our 4 p.m. streams, that was way back in the day. But yeah, no, I know what that's about. So anyway, all right, guys. Well, thank you guys for being here. Thanks for sticking around. We appreciate you all very much. And we appreciate Jordan for taking the time. If you like this stream, please like this stream. If you like this channel, please subscribe to this channel. We got 1,000 of you guys in here now. That's pretty cool, I'd say. Our chat did crap out on us for like 45 minutes, and then it came back. So we missed some super chats, but I see them in the back end of my YouTube.
That discussion was too hot for YouTube.
Too hot for YouTube. We broke the internet. We're like Ron DeSantis.
Broke the internet.
Yeah. There's so many people in here. We're melting the servers, right? Go ahead.
I mean, just to close, you got mostly positive reviews. Some people, I think, wanted, a steel cage match. Listen,
I mean, that was the closest thing 2 Jews can give you to a steel cage match. 3. I think Jordan's a tribesman himself.
He was very good to stay for that long. And I hope that people who watched it got some more insight into where he's coming from. I hope he got more insight into where certain spaces in the online left are coming from. And I meant what I said at the end. Jordan's reporting is extremely valuable. Jordan, if all of this can kind of calm down, would be a great resource for people in this space. And, maybe this can be the beginning of tamping that down. I'm not going to hold my breath the way things have gone over the last 7 years for the left. Never bet on the peaceful outcome.
All right. Well, let's get to these super chats because pretty soon I'm going to get text from the wife saying it's 5 o'clock in the morning. Where are you? So let's get to these. So, folks, our chat did crap out on us from like 7:15 to 8 o'clock, where we weren't getting any chats in StreamYard. They are now back. There is a bit of a gap. I will read all these super chats. There are some I'm not going to be able to put on the screen because we don't have access to them in the StreamYard. But we will get to as many as we can. If we miss one of yours, I am deeply sorry about that. I'm going to try my best to make sure I catch everything, but I'm toggling between StreamYard and the YouTube backend. So let's see. All right. From Jack's Page. You were very concerned about this, Jack's Page. I sent you a tweet trying to assuage your anxieties about Jordan's tweet about Jimmy Dore. He's not an anti-vaxxer. He calls him right-wing. JD reported on Rittenhouse he didn't stand for him. Why does JC keep lying about JD? Well, we did bring up the tweet, as I mentioned. I said we did, and I think we settled that before we went on the air, in fact. Pat Donahue. Thanks for the €10, my friend. Liberals last week. Oh, here, you know what? Let's do this while we got 966 of you in here. Let's grift a little bit, shall we? You can support the show by going to patreon.com/DueDissidence and support this show. We do 2 streams a week, every Sunday night at 7 and every Thursday night at 8. We are changing our schedule up in July, so we will be on Sunday nights, Wednesday nights, and Friday mornings starting in July. But you can go to patreon.com/DueDissidence. You get access to members-only live streams. We are doing our second members-only live stream Wednesday. That'll be June 14th. We already rescheduled it once. I'm sorry, I rescheduled it without realizing my wife has a work commitment on the day we rescheduled it for. And she works at a hospital, so you can't just break a work commitment when you work at a hospital. So we will be on Wednesday night at 8 p.m.
You can if it's zombies.
Yeah, right. And then, I mean, I guess we should announce this, right? I mean, it's kind of weird timing in a sense. But I guess we have to, right? I mean, we can't not announce it.
I suppose so.
This is our last stream between now and Thursday. So our guest
public stream.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a Patreon stream where I'm going to unveil my long-awaited drag show expose. So
yeah, we have that. That's coming up on Wednesday night. But on Thursday night, we are welcoming special guest Jimmy Dore to the show. He will be on at 8 o'clock, and that's not a joke. It kind of sounds like we're joking because of how that conversation went. But it's true. No, it's true. He is our next guest. Jimmy will be on the show on Thursday at 8
We're not
o'clock.
going to be covering headlines this week, really. You're not going to get our take on the news again until like a week from today.
I mean, I hope after that, I hope we didn't get expelled from the Doorknob Network, from the Doorknob Click for that interview. I don't know. I thought we ball rided for Jimmy fairly decently there. I think that was pretty good. Did we simp well enough? I don't know. Did we?
I thought we were firm but fair.
I mean, it's hard. You know, we're getting older. You know, we can't simp like we used to. You know, it's hard to simp. You know, we're not 19 anymore. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And Keaton has hypertension.
Yeah, I have hypertension. But yeah, I mean, assuming we have not been
a joke.
You're all worthless and weak.
Assuming we have not been excommunicated from the cult of Dore, Jimmy will be on on Thursday night at 8 o'clock. So that'll be a lot of fun. So hope you can all tune in for that. Anyway, we have not even made a dent in these yet.
Doing my exercises. That's going to be a lot of ball riding.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got my Pilates ball here I'm working on.
Should put a ball riding collection of workout equipment, you know, like medicine balls.
I've got a sticker of his face on
it. Liberals last week, we have to defend democracy. Liberals this week, when leftist tries to use democracy to enact positive societal change. Not that kind of democracy. West Russell's bookshelf 2024. Russell is thinking about fixing that bookshelf.
I am actually going to fix it because I think it used to be funny, but I'm starting to get worried.
Abiding, thanks for the 99 cents. We appreciate that. Mr. Methuselah, thanks for the $5. Greeting, Jordan Charlatan Shitlib. I'm glad I stopped watching your show 2 years ago. All right, am I going to have to read a bunch of pylons here? All right. Well, did you read these so we would read them or so that they would catch his eye? I'm not sure. I don't know if he was looking at the chat.
I think this is the last thing he's watching right now.
That's the thing.
I think he's done.
I mean, that's the thing, man. Like, we've been doing this seriously for about a year. And, we've had some other guests on the show who have gotten, some fairly hostile reactions from the chat, particularly some of the people I invited in when Russ was in India. The thing about Jordan is, he is a pro, so it's hard to rattle him with super chats. He stays on
message. Yeah.
Stays on message. Hard to knock that guy off his game, I gotta say. Robin Gibson, you can't separate imperialism and domestic policy. Yeah, that was the point I made, and I think that's a critique that's really missing from the types of leftists that Jordan tends to be softer on. And I would include, himself in that also. I tried to communicate that. I hope I did an okay job. Speaking of H2O, Jordan, New York. Okay. So there we go. Okay, that was at 8 o'clock. So this is when the chat came back. So I have to go find some more super chats. All right, good to know. Perfect. Speaking of H2O, Jordan, the New York State legislative session, which ended yesterday, failed to pass. According to Food and Water Watch, stopping Hochul from dumping radioactive waste into the Hudson River. I really should. Now that I live in the Albany area, I should be more up on this stuff, actually. I have an opportunity to be. So I'll take that. But thank you, Roger. All right. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to find...
That blows my whole theory. I always say, yeah, man, I mean, the Democrats suck. But when I live in a Democrat state, I'm not worried they're going to bury radioactive waste in my backyard. There goes that.
Okay, so now we're going to read some super chats that came in between 7:15 and 8 o'clock. So these I'm going to be able to read, but I'm not going to be able to put them on the screen. And it's really unfortunate because this one I wanted to put up on the screen. This is from Christina Suozo. You're the one who shit talks us on the Vanguard a lot. You give them money to call us out. So you were here saying, yay.
At least we got some of that sweet cash.
Yeah, wish we got some sweet cash. Yay, thanks for having an independent journalist on your show. Jordan's the best. All right, so he got some love from Christina. Black Freud gave us $2. Jordan, oy vey. Yeah, Black Freud's learning our Yiddish tongue.
Learning our lingo.
Learning the lingo.
Pretty
Absolutely.
soon we're not going to be able to talk in front of the audience in Yiddish anymore.
Exactly, yeah. Right. Won't be able to sign. Once again, folks, I'm reading from the back end of YouTube. Unfortunately, I can't share these on the screen because StreamYard crapped out on us for about 45 minutes. Nicole Vance, thanks for the $10. Oh, my God, I watch Days of Our Lives. I have no problem with that. FATWO. Do you know what FATWO stands for? Does anybody who's hip in the audience know what that is? I'm not sure.
I will Google it while you're doing that.
All right. You gave us $10. Why not? Infrared in the chat here, $20.20, says Jordan Charlatan is toxic garb, and no, I don't care if I'm being rude. LOL. Are you the actual Infrared? Are you the Haas Infrared? Because you definitely have a reputation for being rude. I know you're not shy about that, but thank you very much.
I mean, if I got the right thing, this is pretty funny.
All right.
Female adnexial tumors of probable Wolffian origin.
All right. I mean, I don't feel guilty for not knowing that. That's one thing I can say about that.
I mean, maybe they were being funny. Yeah. Okay.
Franklin. Yeah. Okay, let me just see what the next one is. Okay, so we're still okay, perfect. Franklin for the $4.99. Thank you. Jordan, with respect, horrible things you cover professionally are exacerbated by the people you suggest we vote for, aka the Democrats. I think that's a fair point. Like I said, Jordan has always kind of towed a line here where he's said that he doesn't care who you vote for. But one of the things that I hope I communicated in that exchange was that the ideas that he views as out of bounds, i.e. the Jimmy Dore checklist thing with the anti-vax and the Putin standing and the Rittenhouse stuff, like those ideas are considered further out of bounds to him than a lot of the ideas that Democrats espouse, that establishment Democrats sort of espouse. Like he views those tweets that he put in there, those points in that tweet. Oh, did I get rid of it? Shit. He views those as sort of more fringe and more out of bounds than a lot of, say, the Biden talking points. So that would be a critique.
It's fuck all the way off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
I liked what I liked what I found better.
Makes a lot more sense.
It's
Fuck
a
all the way
tumor
off.
given by a wolf bite or something.
Fuck all the
It's
way
like
off sounds more like our audience. You know what I mean? That sounds more like our crowd.
We have some geeks in there.
Yeah. All right. Going down here, Mr. Methuselah, $10. Jordan Charlatan equals corn pop Joe Sheepherder clown face. Thank you, Mr. Methuselah. All right. Nicole Vance, thanks for the other $10. I know us animals were supposed to be good, but come on, you just threw us Bubba and said, be quiet. I'm fucking dying. Yeah, we did. We did tell you. We did ask that you be on your best behavior tonight, which, I mean, look, I'm not, I don't know.
Look,
the
man,
chat
I
was moving
knew what
fast and
that
the
chat was going to
broke.
be like. I just kept it off for that whole thing.
Right.
I didn't turn it on until the end.
Mr. Methuselah, thanks for the $10. Okay, I mean, a lot of these were just meant to kind of troll him, but I'll read it. I said I'd read it. Jordan Charlatan thinks he's a serious journalist. All right. Thank you for the $10, Mr. Methuselah. Robert Penner for $5. Jimmy Dore does not pander to the right. I just saw him live tonight in Connecticut. Oh, you're at the show in Hartford. He has a unifying message. He was right in my neighborhood last night. He was in Cohoes. That's right near me. I couldn't go. You know why? Because like Jordan, I'm a dad. You can't do fun shit when you're a dad like that. You know, you just can't. You know, that's the way it is.
I won't even get a plant. Caden put up a very interesting picture the other day of him with his son on the merry-go-round. I was just like, wow, the other one's going to have a complex. You're just saying right here, I like this one better.
No, I take turns. I alternate which ones go in the profile pictures. The other one was with my wife. That was at a carousel in Saratoga Springs.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. See, I'm bougie like that. I'm part of the carousel left. You know, that's our new clip. All right. Auntie Ann for $5. Thank you. Karen Chariton is easily one of the least self-aware content creators. It's not arrogance or hypocrisy. Yes, it is. Yeah, he seemed to dance around that quite a bit. You know, like first he would sort of try and accuse us of hypocrisy and then saying he's not, and then he would say I'm accusing him. I mean, I thought my point about the Vanguard burying a substantive segment over shitlib cartoon gossip, I think that made the point pretty well. You know, but he didn't see it that way. Excuse me. Pandering to some people on the right, says Barbara Eaton for $5. Thank you. Makes sense if they agree on certain important issues. Well, yeah, in that sense, it's not pandering, and I think you're right. And I think, unfortunately, that is somewhere where I'd have liked to take the conversation, being like, okay, well, just because certain points happen to align with points that people on the right tend to make, that alone does not render those points to be illegitimate. And we didn't really get into that as much as I probably would have liked to, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, he gave us literally double the time he originally said he was going to give us.
No, it's not his fault. I'm just saying.
So
it's my fault, if anything. I didn't take it there when I probably should.
I mean, you covered a lot of ground. That's also that is the first time we've ever had an interview that was kind of antagonistic in a way. You know, we tried to keep it fair, but then you got 2-on-1, so it was complicated.
Right. When you're 2-on-1, you got to make extra sure not to talk over the guest and to give them time to finish. And, you know, there were moments where I thought he kind of took advantage of that a little bit and went on and on and on and tried to change topics.
He filibustered a little.
Yeah, he filibustered a little bit, but, you know, it's 2-on-1. So a little bit, you know, a little bit. You missed the sound drop? Or are you getting it? I thought that was a perfect time. Slow hands Dobular. That's what we're going to call him from now on.
Which one? Oh, wow, yeah.
You insulted him a little bit.
Insulted him a little bit.
Okay,
got a little out of order yourself.
Got a little out of order yourself. You know, you insulted him a little bit. All right, man. Okay, so you can't separate imperialism. That's where we're going to pick up. All right. Just seeing how much more we got to go here. Wow, we got a lot here to get through. Okay, I see. Yeah, no, we got some super chats here, and thank you guys, folks, very much for your generosity. We appreciate that a great deal. Okay, sorry, Robin Gibson. That's where we left off. I think the great divide is the D party. Most of us used to be Ds and left the party. And then you gave another one. Sorry, still learning super chat. Putin bad equals DNC. Yeah, I agree with all of those. You split those up among three. Pittsburgh dude 87 says, Jordan, why don't you go report from the Donbass? Well, this is something. I mean, I thought one of the reasons maybe I spent too much time on Russia, Ukraine, but I just that's been something that has stuck in my craw for a while, that so much of the left just has a lack of curiosity and interest about this. And I do view what's going on now with Russia and Ukraine to be this larger battle of sort of, states and their philosophies. And so I think it is mind-boggling to me that the left, quote unquote, is not more interested in that. Which is why I harped on it, perhaps to a fault. Perhaps there were moments where I should have let it go, but I didn't. Tusker, thanks for the $5. The establishment has taken old left language and has totally redefined what the terms mean. What is this imperialism the new left talks about? I think that's an excellent point. Russell, if you have anything to add to any of these, let me know. I can't see you now because I'm reading the YouTube chat, so feel free to just jump in anytime.
All right. Just talk over you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a guest anymore.
Yeah, no, just be rude
No,
like you usually do.
What I used to do.
Yeah.
I cleaned up my act.
Right, exactly. Danny Knapp, thanks for the $5.
You guys, you should really go back and watch.
Just like that.
You should go back and watch like our old shows before we worked out how to do a show. And it was basically Keaton had the best description, like two seagulls fighting over a piece of matzah. We're just being like, yeah,
exactly.
Trying to yell over each other.
Exactly.
And then we had to sit down because we had one person who kept criticizing us for that. That was what made me be like, oh wow, this must be really bad.
Yeah, absolutely. We tried to work it out. Danny Knapp, thanks for the $5. Does Jordan think it's okay that Ukraine's illegal coup government invaded Donetsk and Lugansk, who separated legally under Ukraine law? I mean, these are, like I said, I hope I litigated that issue enough, but not too much. But yeah, I mean, I think all these questions are questions that I wish people were more curious about. Make him say Jackson Hinkle. Ann says, make him say Jackson Hinkle. That's who he has a hard on for. Make him admit it. I'm jealous that Hinkle has more subscribers at 23. Hinkle, the thing about Hinkle is I don't think Hinkle claims any real left bona fides at this point. So I didn't think Hinkle's name...
I think he's abandoned that.
I don't think his name was particularly relevant in that context, but there were times when I wanted to say Jackson Hinkle. I just don't think Hinkle really, really thinks of himself as of the left at this point, even though at one point he certainly did. Robert Penner, stand for Rittenhouse, excuse me, as a straw man. I saw Jimmy live tonight in Connecticut. His material mocked media's lies about Rittenhouse, cross state lines, etc. Look, we did a whole episode on Rittenhouse. That was an audio show. You can go back and say that. And what Jordan said was he even put the caveat in there, given the absurdity of Wisconsin state laws, which was basically him admitting that, yeah, laws being what they were, they didn't have proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So even Jordan seems to have admitted that. And that's what we said. I said, look, of course, in a sane society, a kid should not be able to arm himself and go to a rally like that. Once you do that, you should forfeit any self-defense claim. That's not the country we live in. This is a sick country. And so that's why I didn't litigate that, because I felt like he qualified it enough to the point where I thought we should get into the bigger stuff.
Well, and honestly, like with Ukraine, he kept going back to Jimmy said Putin is not the bad guy. And we just kept looping on that. Well, he's praised Putin. Well, when did he praise Putin? He said he's not the bad guy. That doesn't mean he's not a bad guy. It just kept
right. It just became that. And then I tried to broaden it out a bit. Hopefully I did all right. Putin had no choice, says Laugh. Look up the history of Ukraine. It's BS to go along with MSM on this. The action of starting a war is BS. Yeah, I mean, look, I've spoken about this as well. And look, I think, like I said to Jordan, I said philosophically, of course, the Ukrainian people should not have to pay for the crimes of America and the crimes of the West and the broken promises of NATO. So of course I'm against it in that very fundamental moral way.
And I don't know anyone who isn't.
But that doesn't. I don't know who isn't.
Who's
right.
not?
And
who are we talking about?
And
then it kept coming back to Jimmy Dore.
Right. It certainly doesn't mean you should put quote marks around the word provoked as if there's something suspect about saying
when
that.
we all
just
agree that
we all agree that it was provoked in a very, very aggressive way, in a way that certainly we, the United States, would never tolerate. Franklin, thanks for the $1.99. We aren't funding Nazis in America with billions. That's true. That's true. We don't give that. We don't fund our own Nazis. Our own Nazis must feel a little bit gypped by that. Mr. Methuselah, and that's the thing. He seemed to not want to deal with the fact that, I mean, even the New York Times had to come out with a headline this week and be like, "Hey, maybe you should hide the Nazi
no, there were some Nazis marching with signs, I think, saying, "Fund Nazis here, not over there."
Right. They were saying all Nazi lives matter. That was their rally. Yeah. Jordan Charlton lives in his own reality distortion field of Balls Kuklinski. All right, very good. Mr. Methuselah really bringing the highbrow material to the show tonight, but you made a big investment in it. Thank you for reminding. Yes, Lita Gray.
That's the grift, baby.
That's what it's all about, baby.
We want to be making that sweet $40,000 to $50,000 a year money.
Right? Yeah, exactly. We're gunning for $45K between the two of us, plus a cut for YouTube. Lita Gray, thanks for the $5.50. Thank you for reminding me why I stopped watching this guy years ago. Danny Knapp, thanks for the $5. Marianne Williamson doesn't support Medicare for all. It's not on her website. She sometimes uses vague language like universal health care. Look, this is another thing that I knew we would get. You know, we would. Again, he gave us way more time than we thought he was going to give us, and it was still not enough. I mean, we still got all these questions.
Look, I mean, mostly the reviews are good. You got some people who only would have been happy if we literally just fucking hit him over the head for 10 minutes until he left. Like you just can't do that. You just can't do that. I said that last week.
We wouldn't get any super chats if we did that. We'd be out of here with $3 fucking if we did that.
Well, but it's also not fair. It's not fair. You don't invite somebody on your show. You got two of us here, and then just beat the shit out of them and not let them answer questions.
No, of course not. You can't give them the
We're not those guys. We're not those guys. We're not going to do that.
No,
we're not going to do that. That's dirty pool.
No, and in fact, I was probably overcompensate. I was probably trying too hard not to cut him off for like the first 45 minutes because he kept cutting me off and then going on forever. And then there were certain times where like, all right, I guess I'm going to have to jump in.
Yeah.
Because otherwise.
Well, and then a lot of times we'd both try to jump in. And, then it looks like a fucking brawl. Then it looks like 2-on-1.
Yeah. Then it was the seagulls picking apart the last French fry on the beach. Jordan Charlton has always had the worst political takes of his fellow shit libs. Always wrong, says Mr. Methuselah. For another $10. Man, you really got your digs in. Bennett Weiss, that's my dad. Okay, enough. Get rid of this obnoxious slime who started with a snarl and chip on his shoulder.
It's not a super chat. You can't see this, right?
All right.
Extra Bulla. I wanted Russell to drive out to Long Island to take a baseball bat to his truck.
To his truck. His truck.
Yeah,
not him. Not him.
I wouldn't have put it up if it had been him.
Yeah, if it had been him. All right. Well, we're not interested in vandalizing his truck either. But thanks, Extra Bulla. And Extra Bulla, that might come back to haunt you later on in the campaign. So, that was a bit of a risk you took. Marianne Williamson says Son Brock didn't support single payer in 2020. What changed?
You see what happens, Larry, when you fuck a stranger in the ass.
There you go. Yeah. Exactly. That was a good time for that. Did she not support single payer health care in 2020? I don't remember what her platform was in 2020. I didn't pay much attention to her back then, I will admit.
All right, listen, I'm sorry, but apparently we're going to have a chat revolt because they feel cheated that I did not play 666 number.
Oh, well, we passed that exit a long time ago.
We passed it, but all right.
We got to keep the fans happy. We got to keep everybody happy here. We want you all to be very happy. Terry Linster, he's not debating in good faith, and he's a chump. Thank God for Double D, HLM, RBN, JD, and all others who are post-duopoly. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, Terry. We appreciate that. Social emotional learning with Dr. Donnie. All right. This is incredible. Jordan got pluses and minuses. So do you guys. So do I. This is teaching me to get over it. Focus on facts. Let's educate each other. Well, that's a positive message. I wish we could have put that one on the screen.
Look, a positive message.
Yeah, I wish we could have put that up on the screen.
That's refreshing.
There's no justice in the world. That's why our StreamYard crapped out, because when it senses a positive message, we understand that's not what YouTube is about. YouTube is about negativity.
The algo kills it.
Yeah, the algo shuts that shit down. Robin, thanks for the $2. Ask Jordan what his position on the Democratic Party is, please. I think we got into some of that, and like I said, part of what made me want to do this is because he's been a little slippery on that, in my opinion. Like, he'll say he doesn't care whether you vote Democrat or vote third party, but then he'll say, it's Jimmy Dore's fault that Nina Turner didn't win because he didn't send volunteers down there, and then he says, no, I didn't say that. Like, he does seem to feel like engagement in Democratic politics is the best way to engage. That's what it seems to me like that's what he's saying. Like I said, he kind of qualifies that in several different ways, but I remember him covering the Nina Turner campaign. I remember him being there interviewing her, and I wish I had brought this up to him, because Nina Turner told him this last time that she's got big plans for 2024 and watch out. I don't know if anybody recalls that, but he interviews her and she says, I've got plans for 2024, teasing perhaps an independent run. What happened there? She took a job with TYT, right?
Well, and having that conversation about differences in perspectives on electoral politics, on electoralism, and outside the system, that was a really interesting and I thought substantive part of the conversation. And that, that was part of what I was trying to get at when we closed out. There doesn't have to be all this hostility. There really doesn't. But he's encouraging a lot of that. Like, there's no reason for a guy who spends all day covering East Palestine to get into this kind of thing on Twitter. There's no reason for it. I don't think anybody, some people are going to be hostile towards you because you have a different view on electoralism, but not too many, not most. Like, I think a lot of people would be covering some of the stuff he does if he wasn't getting into all this about Jimmy Dore and all of these things. I thought when we got into what his actual views on elections were, I didn't agree with what he was saying, but it's not a point of view where I think any reasonable person would say, I hate you, now die. Like, it was okay.
I have to be honest with you folks. By that point in the conversation, I was like, seriously, from one husband and dad to another, I was getting nervous for the guy because I could see he had to leave. I was like, oh man, please don't put that guilt on me, please. All right, we're almost to the point where we can put these back on the screen. Charlatan doesn't care because his wife works for a security state contract. All right, I'm not going to talk about I'm not going to talk about his wife or any of that. But thank you. I think I'm confident you made your point. Basically, your point is saying he's well off and he's good. Auntie Ann, thanks for the $2. Minsk Accord should have been enforced. Thank you for the $2. 500 yen from Web Angel. Jordan, I'm focusing on what's important, and you should focus on the same thing.
We got yen.
Well, it's the Y. That's what it is.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, we got yen.
That's all right.
Yeah. See, Jordan. I'm sorry, Jordan. Russell could put that in his vacation fund to.
That's right.
China. I'm focusing on what's important.
That would be Japan.
What would be Japan?
The yen?
Yeah. Aren't yen Chinese?
No, that's the yuan.
Oh, the yuan. Oh, that's no. Are you sure? Anyway. Also, he talks about Fox pretending to be not MSNBC or CNN. Get the fuck out of here. All right. Thank you, Web Angel. Should be noted. All right, dogs for the win. I'm sorry we can't put this one up because this was for a big one. This was $49.99. Russell, why don't you give him a singing bowl for this one since we can't put him up? We'll kick in the extra.
I'll hold it away from the.
Yeah, hold it away from the microphone.
From the mic for the DSA members.
Should be noted, Trump was the one who started supplying lethal aid to Ukraine while it was at war with Russia. Biden's just continuing Trump's policy and scaled it up when Russia escalated, so Trump was giving military aid to Nazis before anyone else. Aaron Mate has spoken about this, but it goes back obviously before that, and I meant to bring this up too. That is the timeline not suspicious that Barack Obama says we are not willing to make this our fight because Ukraine will never mean as much to the United States as it will mean to Russia. Therefore, we're not willing to spill blood over this. He then makes Joe Biden his point man for Ukraine. Hunter Biden gets a job on the energy board, and now Joe Biden is Rambo on Ukraine. Like that doesn't raise any red flags? Like, come on.
Of course it does.
Come on. Thank you, though, for the $49.99. I appreciate that. And while Trump obviously did make some hawkish moves in that regard, I think, honestly, and people are going to say I'm making excuses, I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that he was under pressure from minute one, that they called him a Russian agent and a Russian asset.
Well, I
feel like he had to do certain things in order to prove that he wasn't. And that's, I think, a big reason why he did that.
Well, there's that famous Rachel Maddow segment that was disgusting. We're about to find out if the presidency is a Russian op. If he pulls troops back from the border.
Exactly, yes.
That's not a Republican Democrat thing. This is so huge, disgusting. So, yeah, he had that before he ever sat his fat ass in the White House. He had this enormous pressure to be tough on Russia. Right. How could he pull the troops back after that? That's why I said that segment was dangerous. It was dangerous to the country to box in the president that way in regards to foreign policy. It was literally possibly provoking a conflict with Russia. What are you doing?
No, I agree. All right, here we go. Robin Gibson. Now we are back. Back. Man, thank you guys very much. It's very humbling that you guys are enabling our grift in such a way to give us these super chats. That's very nice of you. It's
California, here I come.
It's been a pleasure grifting off of you this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you for supporting our grift.
Here you go, Robin Gibson. Thanks for the $2.
Tomorrow's headline: DueDissidence owns Jordan Chariton while he attacks RBN.
Right, exactly. While we're at it here, folks, we're at 99.35 in our sub count. We got 865 of you guys in here. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, can you hit that subscribe button? That would be pretty awesome of you.
When we hit
Robin
10,000, Keaton does the dance of the seven veils.
Exactly. I got to learn that one. Maybe I'll do that on the Patreon stream. Okay, we took this one already. Imperialism and domestic policy. We took Rogers already. All right, now we're back. Now you guys are back on the screen. By the way, this message here came in at 8:12, so we have a long way to go. But thank you guys so much. We'll be here for as long as you guys are supporting us. We're very, very grateful. We are not going to bed until we read all of these. Carlos Magus, thanks for the $5. Ask him, please, why he's pushing the proletariat into a right-wing party. I think we touched on that. I hope we did that to your satisfaction. Ask Jordan to see if he has ever watched any labor-based story that Indy and Reef cover on their Sunday show every week. Colin Radix Carter, our friend. Thank you, Colin. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Colin.
I mean, I tried to make the point as best I could that the stuff is being covered more than he says. He says he looks at the thumbnails of RBN and can glean from those that they don't cover anything substantive. I explained we do the same thing here. And that's what Matt Taibbi told us when we interviewed him, and I was actually very encouraged by that, and I thought it made a lot of sense. Taibbi says, look, part of the tradition of American journalism is selling the story. He says that's why American journalism has been so great, because there's been an element of hustle involved in it. You have to get people interested, right? You got to move those papers.
Extra.
Right, exactly. That's what makes it dynamic and interesting and fun, and if you care about the story, you have a responsibility to do that. And I thought the example that I raised with the labor strike and Ryan Grimm, Shama Sawant, I thought that was a good example. If I could get more of a word in edgewise, like I said, it got a little chaotic there, I would make a point. We had Railroad Workers United people on the show. It was a great show. It was one of the proudest moments of doing this show. That got about 1,200 views. You know, Ryan Grimm owns Shama Sawant, 8,000 views. Now, we loved having the railroad people on. We would do it again in a heartbeat, right? But if we want to get the story out, if we want people invested in the story, what is the better way to do that? You tell me, right? That's just the way it is. And that's on you guys, by the way. That's on the audience to a large extent. And I don't mean that in a nasty way. I mean, I'm an audience member too. You know, audiences are drawn to conflict. Russell and I come from the theater. That's the first thing you learn.
Understand that.
If you're on stage, there has to be conflict. When the conflict is over, the play is over. Period. You have no business on the stage unless there's a conflict. And so that's what people are drawn to. That goes back thousands of years. It's nothing for people to be ashamed of. And it's nothing for creators to be ashamed of either. Right. You got to sell your story. If you want people interested, you have to generate that interest. That's on you to do that.
This is why, in an ideal universe, channels like ours, channels like Indie News Network, channels like RBN would say, hey, Jordan, you're covering East Palestine. You want to come on for 20 minutes and talk about it? We should be living in that world, not in this world where we're fighting for what?
Right, where we bring him on and, exactly. Dogs for the win. Thank you for the $4.99. I think what Jordan is trying to say is you are more eager to find parts of agreement with the GOP than other leftists of different stripes and vice versa. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. That's not what we're trying to do.
Everyone on the left has been getting that since the Hillary Clinton campaign. My answer to it is I have contempt for the Democrats. The GOP is beneath my contempt. That's what
I would say they're both beneath contempt at this point. But
I mean, at this point, they've gotten worse.
Yeah, exactly.
But look, the basic framework of the conversation with the Democrats is within my perceptual universe of politics. Even though they're lying, they're wrong about their prescriptions, and they're lying about what they stand for. You're having the same general conversation. Generally, the GOP is coming at it from such a completely opposite angle. It's not even something that I'm going to get into. We'll point out when they're right about certain things, but it's partly because that's a dog bites man story. It's like,
well,
wow,
I also think there's
Marjorie Taylor Greene is right about this thing. It's kind of interesting, right?
I mean, I also think there is an element of it. I think for me personally, it's less to do with what you said, more to do with the fact that the people who are more within our spheres of influence, as basically, I mean, in my case and in Russell's case, we're basically libs until 2014, right? The people who we can influence most tend to be Democrats, tend to be people who are more sympathetic to the Democratic Party. So, like, we can come on here and we can rant about Donald Trump or, DeSantis, and we have covered them for time.
In our world, you're just preaching to the choir.
You're just preaching to the choir. Whose mind is going to be changed by that, right? What's the efficacy of doing that?
I mean, now that is a grift. That, to me, is a grift.
Right, that's a grift.
Because look, the viral video that I have on my other channel was before my politics changed. And it's very, you stupid Republicans watching Rush Limbaugh. Yeah, that's how old that video is. And you blame Obama for everything. It was total MSNBC talking points. That shit has over 5 million views, man. That's where the fucking money is. That's where the grift is. If you want to grift, tell people what they want to hear. Don't challenge them with what they need to hear.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Where are we here? Dave Delarai, thank you for the $15. Classic JC. Watched him until midsummer 2020. Say you don't pay attention to something, then do a purity test about a meaningless aspect of a thing like condemn Putin. Dishonest, shallow, craves attention. That's what I said. I said, this condemnation of Putin, that's a moral statement. You're free to make it. It's not a political statement in my view. Just like condemnation of Hussein was not a political statement in 2003. It's irrelevant. Right? I mean, it doesn't mean anything to say, well, I condemn Putin. So what? Right. So what? What is our response?
Well, and then, that was what we got into. That's the classic anti-war smear. You're supporting the other side. Right? If you're anti-war, you support the Viet Cong.
Right. Exactly. Russell was worried we didn't have enough content for this show. He was worried. He's like, should we do segments after?
Yeah. I was afraid because he told us 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah. Plus, there was the possibility he'd quit. The other thing we had to consider. How do we fill time if he leaves? But no, he was a good sport. He stuck around, and I seriously, I thought that in all likelihood he would. But you never know with these things. That's why I tried to let him speak as much as possible, especially for those first 45 minutes or so. Hardlands Media, Kit Cabello. Thank you, Kit. We appreciate that, my friend. Say my name, Jordan. Hardlands Media. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he didn't. That's the thing. The whole thing was in the original video that CJ posted, okay, where he talks about the RFK dem exit, the dem exit RFK stands. He talked about Jimmy Dore mini-me channels, but no Jimmy Dore aligns channel, or I shouldn't say aligned, but no people who sort of subscribe to that theory of dem exit and sort of more of a burn it all down type of thing. If I'm broadly sort of categorizing that, I don't know of any outlet, including Jimmy himself, endorsing RFK or supporting RFK or telling people to donate to RFK. I think people give RFK credit for certain things. Where they feel it's warranted, just like to go back to Dogs for the Win. When it comes to finding points of agreement, when Matt Taibbi was being grilled by that lowlife Stacey Plaskett, Democrat, right? And something came up where she pressured him to reveal a source, and Jim Jordan butts in. He says, "Are you asking a journalist to reveal his source?" That there, not that I would ever consider voting for Jim Jordan. That was better First Amendment advocacy than we've heard for years out of any Democrat. Years.
Yep.
So what am I supposed to do? Not give him credit for it? It doesn't mean I'm trying.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean I'm going out of my way
and
to
meanwhile,
kiss up to the GOP. It means that I'm reacting to what I'm seeing. Right.
Meanwhile, you have AOC, who we all supported at one time or another, most of us anyway, when she was first coming up. She was a hero to us, right? Tweeting out that Matt Taibbi should be prosecuted for perjury after that bullshit hit piece from Mehdi Hassan. Those are the people we're supposed to get more of in Congress. That's why nobody gave a shit about Nina Turner. I mean, that in particular hadn't come up yet. But the failure of the squad and the very quick capitulation of the squad was really why there was no energy behind Nina Turner's campaign. Now, yeah, people like Jimmy, people like us, we didn't talk up her campaign. But that's why. And that was why I tried to get into hey, it's a debate about resources in a lot of ways. That's why I think people who are better fixed are more inclined not to see it as a problem. Whereas people who are working class, they think that way. We have limited resources, man. We can't keep going and getting behind these people. As soon as they get in office, they just do what Pelosi says. You say Nina wouldn't be like that? I remember her toning it down during that campaign. Now you want to say, well, she needed to do that to win. We always say that shit. And then they get in office and it's another excuse. It's another excuse. It's another excuse. When people show you who they are, believe them. The way that they behave in that campaign, it's not going to be any different. You think that they're going to get in office because the same imperatives that make them have to tone it down for the campaign, you think those imperatives go away once they get in office? Those imperatives get 10 times
get worse.
Stronger. Right? Now they show you the demon box. They show you the box with the dimension they're going to send you to if you don't vote the right way.
Exactly. Harlan's Media is from Chicago. Say our name. Also put respect on RBN. Well, we litigated that.
I think you mean say my name, bitch.
Jessica May, thank you very much. Jessica's a member. By the way, folks, you can go to patreon.com, become a member. You can also join through YouTube. If you hit the join button next to the subscribe button, it helps support us regularly through this YouTube channel. That is a big, big help. So thank you all. And thank you, Jessica, for becoming a member. And thank you for the chat. It's a very clever use of the eggplant emoji. I've never really seen. Usually the eggplant emoji refers to a dick in a positive way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like if
someone's got a big dick.
It's like a bull market. It's going up.
Right. Or if someone's dick works really well, you put an eggplant there. Or but I've never seen.
Look at this fucking guy. He's hung like a fucking eggplant.
The eggplant. Right. Exactly.
I've
never seen it used in this way. That's a very clever use of it. I appreciate that. Tell him to stop being an arrogant dick, and more people would love to watch his excellent reporting. His attitude is awful. I was joined at one point and left.
That is 100. I 100% agree with that. That's my take.
Right. I mean, just lay off it. Lay off it. Our friend Misty Winston, she does a radio show. She says, I don't do the gossip, period. Period, that's it. That's a policy. I don't do it, no matter what. And she does great. And I think that's probably what he should do, because his strength is clearly journalism. Old-fashioned, go out, get the story, tell the story.
Shoe leather. Old-time hockey.
Exactly.
That's why, just to like really surprise him, I wanted to cover Jamel Hill leaving Spotify for the first half hour. Just see what he does. Like, so what do you think about Jamel Hill being off Spotify? He would have no idea how to react to that.
Yeah, throw him the old curveball.
We just want to do gossip about shit that really doesn't matter.
Really doesn't matter
at all.
There is no we. That is the point. Jordan and his ilk are part of the deceivers. Yeah, I mean, what we have felt about that, like I said, I hope we got into that, a little bit. I think he does send mixed messages in that way, right? I don't care who you vote for, but how could you not support Nina Turner? Well, that's kind of, I mean, that's muddled, right? Jessica, ask him about the train weapon transport in Ohio. I should have. He's had a guy out there, from day one, and like I said, tons of props for that.
It is a fact. Whenever I have gone and covered anything on the street here, his guy is there.
Right. No, they are out there for sure. Paul Chu, thanks for the $5. Colin, INN covers labor stories every week. Jordan doesn't mention us, and he has spoken to Jordan personally. Are you talking about Indy has spoken to Jordan personally? We are not all about infighting. Yeah, no, you guys don't cover that stuff very much at all.
No.
Not at all. I see in your streams, I see almost none of that stuff.
No.
Yeah, so that's a good point, Colin. Lisa Catlett, thanks for the $5. Jordan is Miss Millie from The Color Purple. Good. To you people.
Are we even allowed to read that?
Are we even allowed to read that? I don't know. That's why
I don't know what the rules are.
I don't know what the rules are. Exactly. Thank you, Lisa. I think we are. I don't think there's no. Here we go. Jessica May, thanks for the $1.99. Cowbell. Is that what you're talking about? Is that a cowbell reference? All right, here's American Wasp. Here's our former fan who turned on us on Twitter.
I could have used a little more cowbell.
Fighting the good fight, Jordan, but I'm afraid these New York know-it-alls are in Jimmy Dore's pocket. They're more about sub-numbers than uniting the left. Speaking of sub-numbers, where are we at?
This little bitch is just pissed off that we didn't let him broker a meeting with the Vanguard.
He wanted us to agree to do a debate with the Vanguard, and he said one of the conditions of the debate is you have to admit that that the Marianne pushers are acting in good faith. Why would I agree to a debate where I have to surrender my position
exactly
before
it made no sense?
Didn't make much sense there.
And I was just like, your family doesn't even have that kind of muscle.
Speaking of sub counts, where are we? 99.40. All right, getting there. Nicole Vance, thanks for the $5. I wouldn't knock on a door if you paid me on this election. No, of course. I mean, I think that's where a lot of people are coming from, and I think as we communicated, I mean, that's not. I don't think that's nihilistic at all. And like the thing is, it's tough. This is part of the critique of Jordan is that he's slippery in that way. It's tough to nail down. He might be saying, well, no, you don't have to knock on doors. I'm not calling you a nihilist if you don't knock on doors. At the same time, we could have really used more hands on deck for Nina Turner in Ohio. Right. And how could you not tell people to come here? What are you doing? You know what I mean?
He's a Jewish guy. He has a Jewish mother. He learned from the best.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not saying that you have to support Nina Turner, but having a few more people to knock on doors, it would have been nice. It would have been nice. That's all I'm saying.
Would have been nice. Two Jews ourselves here. We know how it goes. Right. Great convo against purity. Hope you can have Jordan on again. We'll see. I appreciate Status Quo's efforts, although I agree with you on strategy. Dims.
Look in an ideal universe, I would like to have Jordan on again.
I would have him on.
Talk about
Why
East
not?
Palestine, to talk about some of the water issues that he's talking about. I'd like to have him on for that. Like, this was the only time I want to talk about this.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, of
I'm
course.
not doing this again.
I thought he only had 10 minutes. No, he gave us a lot of extra time, so that was at 8:49. Yeah, no, he was around for a while. Sabby Sabs, let's have a round of applause for our friend Sabby here. Actually, I've interviewed the most third-party candidates, including local ones. I've also done a lot of coverage on the ground, including Workers' Strike Back, which I'm part of. Jordan is wrong. That's the other thing I wish I had mentioned that I didn't, which is that Nick spoke at the Workers' Strike Back and that you've covered the Workers' Strike Back. And one thing I will admit a failing of my own, and this is part of what Russell was saying about how when you don't have the resources to find these stories, sometimes you miss them. I'll give you a perfect example. I'm on the Workers' Strike Back email list. They had their launch in New York City this weekend. I literally did not find out about it until it had already happened, until Case Study QB put the video up of them doing it. I'm like, how did I miss that? That's my bad.
That's
I
where
really
when
didn't want to miss that. Like, if I knew that was happening, if Russell lives in the city, I'd be like, okay, go. But like it slipped past me. I take the blame for that. But at the same time, like, it's hard to fucking. How do you know? I'm on their email list and I missed it.
What we were talking about, he made a point of saying nobody covered this Albany union drive. So my point was, well, if nobody covered it with channels with the resources we have, why would we have heard about it?
Right? How would we have known?
Like, we have to rely on reporting. If there's no reporting on something, we just don't know about it. Like, yes, you could look for it, but why would you look for something you don't know exists?
Right. Exactly. Like, it's one of those things. Where would you start in seeking that out? Hardlens Media, let's give a kid a round of applause as well here. Ask him about Truth Against the Machine from his friends at Hardlens Media. When was that? That sounds familiar to me. That was a long time ago, wasn't it? Am I wrong about that? I'm not sure. I'll have to talk to you about that next time, Kit. But thank you very much. Web Angel, Jordan blames YouTubers while most of the progs in Congress didn't even support Nina. That's true. That's true. Didn't AOC endorse her on like the last day of the campaign? Like on the first campaign? Like 24 hours before. Maybe that was on the second campaign she endorsed her 24 hours before. Maybe she didn't even endorse her at all. I don't remember. But I remember they got in very late.
I think she might have at the I think there was a thing about that she endorsed her like right at the
12
very
hours before the polls.
Yeah,
opened.
yeah.
I don't remember if that was the first or second time though. I don't remember.
And this second part, exactly. He says if you don't pander to Dems, you'll lose. Well, Nina did and lost. That's exactly what I was saying. She's already, if the person is pandering before they get elected, this fantasy that they're going to get into office and rip off the mask, aha, bullshit.
Well, but that
have you ever seen that happen once?
I tried to touch on that point quickly, but that was a point that I knew if we went down that road, it just wasn't going to be possible, because that's my whole thing, is that part of why you can't run as a Democrat is because you can't build a political project, certainly not a revolutionary project, based on lies, right? And pandering to Democrats means lying, appeasing the sensibilities of these weak fucking morons who cry when you call Joe Biden half a bowl of shit as if he doesn't fucking deserve it. Or if he doesn't deserve it, as if he can't take it. He's the fucking president. He can take an insult. If that triggers you so hard that you can't look past it, then I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Next. We're not dealing with those people anymore.
What candidate would we get that is not going to offend those people, who's actually going to do what we want them to do when they get there? It's a catch-22. You can never get anyone like that past the people who vote in Democratic primaries.
Right. It's a structural impossibility as a Democrat.
Right. And even if you get them there, they crush them once they get there.
Right. It's a structural impossibility in Congress. Right? All right. So let's keep going. Mescalito, thank you. His message, come together, then we can have more AOCs. I agree. Like, that whole point about Nina Turner at the end there assumes that Nina Turner in Congress would actually make a difference, right? And how many of these are we supposed to elect? We can't elect like 200 Nina Turners. Okay, that progressive brand does not sell everywhere in the country. We did our job of electing enough progressives to make a difference. We elected enough progressives such that the number of progressives was greater than the Democrats' margin in the House in terms of Democrats versus GOP from 2021 to 2022, right? That's what the Build Back Better negotiations were about. We had enough progressives to hold the line and not push through the bad infrastructure bill until they had the votes for the good infrastructure bill. They folded. They folded. Whether we had 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 or 50 more progressives would not have mattered. We already had enough to the point where if they didn't fold, we'd have gotten the Build Back Better bill through. They promised not to fold, and then they did fold. And now you're going to have your fucking panties in a bunch because we didn't rally enough support behind Nina Turner? I mean, come on. Come on. Song 999. Jordan. I was there on day one when he launched his channel from his parents' kitchen. He came in the door with 10,000 subscribers automatically. So much has changed. Well, that was another, but look, again, and I'm not saying he was gifted that job at TYT. I'm sure he earned it. God bless him. He did great work.
I wasn't suggesting that.
No. Yeah, he started out with a built-in audience. There is no way to build a channel from zero doing the kind of reporting that he does and packaging it the way that he does. There's no way to do it. You can't do it. And if you do that, what I argue is that you're doing a disservice to the reporting by not selling it. Now, he's fortunate enough to have started with some name ID in this space. And so he's been able to build a channel based on that. God bless him. I sense a little resentment that his channel's not bigger than it is. I mean, I'm sorry. That does come through a little bit. I didn't want to go there because
I didn't want to go there either.
But I sense
below the belt.
Yeah, but honestly, that's what I sense. But he's still doing very, very well, and I think perhaps just being grateful for that and approaching it with a bit more humility would serve him well.
I think he's frustrated that his reporting doesn't get the views. It seems like a lot of it is that, because why are you gonna look at channels that do mutual aid, which he acknowledged, that do outside work? INN just came up on the chat. They do cover things like that. So why aren't you looking at that? Like, why are you attacking people who, I said this at the end, he talked over it. At this stage in his career, when you look at the lifespan of these channels, he was at Fox News, man. He was at Fox News for the first 3 years. And then he was at MSNBC. So it took him about 6 years before he was doing real reporting. So why are you beating up on these young, new channels that are just getting started?
Right. No, I agree. Mescalito, thanks for the $5. These people don't understand because their material interests are met. You have more in common with Republican dishwasher than with Jordan Chariton. I mean, that's kind of what Russell was getting at there, and that question went over about as well as I thought it would. But I thought it was Russell wanted to ask it, and so there we go. Mescalito, do you have an answer to that, Russell?
What's the question?
Poor Russell. Russell thought we were going to be done in an hour and 20 minutes tonight.
That's all right. Comes with the territory.
Yeah.
I mean, that is what I was trying to get across to Jordan. That I think a lot of this divide is class-based. I think if you look at the people who really are fuck this shit, I don't have the time and money to spare. They're either working class currently, like us, RBN, or Jimmy Dorman. He worked construction. He has that perspective. Look, I've been up and down a lot in my life. I never stopped having that perspective. Whether I had money, didn't have money, I always looked at things like somebody who came up poor. And if you look at the people who don't understand why you don't want to waste any more time and money with the Democratic Party, they tend to be from more privileged backgrounds than a lot of the people who are not. That's what I see.
Look at Yuppie Mafia to understand my point. You're talking about the leftist mafia. Yeah, I think that cartoon is in some trouble now.
I mean, of all people to bring up as an example of not gossip. I mean, what else do those guys do?
Yeah, I mean,
the leftist mafia. I mean, they just do gossip.
Tom S, thank you for the $5. Appreciate it. Edward R. Chariton, keep bringing up the work he does just to shut you up. He was a supremely bad faith performance driven by personal animus. I don't
think so. I think he's bitter about a lot of the turns that things have taken. I think he's bitter that he doesn't get more visibility on his channel. And I think that he's allowed it to make him lash out at things that, in my opinion, he should not be getting into. Like, if you really care about these issues, you want to sell them, right? As you pointed out, you want to sell them. Who is going to platform you more? See, this is a core fallacy.
Right. Exactly.
He's speaking as if people in our lane would not promote. We would all promote him. Just shut up about Jimmy Dore, man. I mean, obviously there's a difference of opinion about that.
When that Flint piece came out in The Guardian, we were not on YouTube. We had an audio show. I messaged him. I emailed him to see if he would come on. Now, he didn't. He got back to me asking me what's the podcast. So I pitched him on the podcast. I never heard back. He told me. He said, I apologize for not getting back to you. That's fine. Look, whatever. We were tiny. I don't expect him to say yes to every interview, right? So that's fine. But the point is, the reason I say that is I sought him out when he was doing that Flint work. I really wanted to interview him about that.
Right.
If he just stayed out of this,
right,
people would be knocking down his door to get him on their show.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, that's what I want to see.
I would be knocking down David Sirota's door to get him on, because he did a lot of great reporting on East Palestine. But I can't because of this kind of shit. I know it would be this in the chat and everything, and it's like, it's not worth it. Like, what? Like, why do you create that? Just do your beat reporting. That's it. You're good at that. Do that. Right.
And I don't think there's anyone in this space who would not be like, hey man, can you come on about East Palestine? That's the core fallacy. He thinks that these channels don't care about that or don't want to platform that. We all want to platform that.
We've interviewed the United for East Palestine guys twice.
Right.
Yeah. Promoted the Common Sense Summit.
The only people
we try to cover that in headlines when a development comes up.
Well, this is the irony.
I wish we covered it more, by the way. I feel guilty for not covering it more. I really do. I honestly, that if someone said, "Hey, didn't you say you were going to be on this?" I'd be like, "Yeah, you're right. We haven't been on this enough."
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Union organizing. I mean, it's a tough beat. Like, that's why I feel like having a resource of somebody who does go on the ground and cover this would be great for this whole indie media space. It's win-win for everybody. It brings people to his channel. It gives us coverage on stuff that I know the people in this space, we all care very passionately about. So, ideally you get this resolved. The only people who are kind of in our ecosystem, in our lane, who literally could give a flying fuck about any of this are the Vanguard, whose show we went on.
Right. Exactly. And then he's saying, well, at least they're honest about it. I mean, I thought that was weak.
Yeah, that's weak sauce.
That was weak. Drifter, thanks for the $4.99. You don't build genuine left power within a rigged system. You can't vote your way out of a situation. Pardon me. You didn't vote yourself into Caitlin Johnston.
Caitlin, wise as always.
I would love to have Caitlin on the show. That would be
great. We should invite her on.
Yeah. I watched Jimmy Dore, and I watched mainly Jimmy Dore, and I knew about Albany. Oh, so there you go.
Oh, okay.
There you go. I honestly, if I'm being honest, it is hard for me to keep up with all of these things. As Russell and I were talking about off the
both
air,
of us.
Yeah. Between working and prepping for this show, we really don't watch that much other content now.
We don't have time. We don't have time between working, and this is becoming almost a full-time job in and of itself. And we both work. So it's like having two full-time jobs, really. No sooner is one show down than we're prepping for the next.
I was delivering groceries.
I got to
today.
research.
Yeah.
I got to research perverts as soon as we're done with this for the Patreon live stream.
I got to research perverts.
God knows what that's going to do to my search history.
Oh my God! Yeah, Marilyn
gotta
Kelly.
Got to get the fucking FBI over here.
$50 for Marilyn. That's a singing bowl. That's a singing bowl.
Yeah.
Away from the
Thank you,
microphone. We
Marilyn.
don't want to offend people's ears, but that's a singing bowl. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Good. All right, that's good. I like that. Web Angel. Thanks again. Breaking Points haven't had Shama on, Jordan. Yeah, I don't think they have. I'm pretty up on all the Shama interviews. I'm pretty up on that, and I don't think that they have. And I haven't seen extensive coverage of that. I wish I had gotten more into that when he was on. Actually, that's one thing. You do these things live, and there's always a million things you look back. Oh, damn! Should have done that. We did our best.
All right.
Kuznetsky was saying, "Thank you for the $4.99." Go ahead.
This isn't a super chat, but Jimmy. Okay, so we had a little conversation before the show, because we knew Keaton was going to give Jordan a choice of which of those topics he wanted to get into.
Yeah, so
Keaton was like, well, if he picks trans, I'm just going to sit back for the rest of the night, and it's your show.
It's your show. I said, if he picks that one, I'm hoping he picks that one. This way I could take half the night off.
Honestly, I was like, Craig, don't let him pick that. Don't let him pick that. I do not want to relitigate this tonight.
He picked the Rittenhouse one, but then he qualified it with the Wisconsin law. So I thought that answered itself. So then he went to the next one. Robert Penner, thanks for the $5.
Thank you, Bobby.
Appreciate that. A Key to Unity is listening. Robert Penner was with Russell at the Grand Central Rail Worker Rally, where Jordan's camera guy was also there. A Key to Unity is listening. Jordan modeled how not to listen. He was a little aggressive. I thought I could, I was very conscious toward the beginning to be as professional as possible and just give him the space to talk. And I thought he exploited that a little bit to the point of starting to talk over us and then take it. So during the second half, I tried to be a little more firm on that note.
He's used to being the hairiest Jew in the room. He's a little intimidated.
I'm probably the hairiest. Like I said, I have the hairiness of the Mediterranean with the pale skin, the fair skin of the Ukrainian and German. That's the thing, folks. I found out I'm a quarter Ukrainian. I lived almost all my life thinking I was a quarter Russian until, actually, because this war started and I learned about it a little more, I realized that my grandmother, who I thought was from Russia, she was actually from a territory that is actually Ukrainian. And I was very, very happy to find that out because I feel that affords me some license to talk about this issue in ways that certainly being a Russian perhaps would not in certain spaces. Murphy, thanks for the $4.99. This being one of them when we're interviewing Jordan. If all independent left media confederated under a single inclusive brand, they would be a genuine force in American politics. Why don't you or they? Well, when you talk about independent left media, look, these were the rifts that I thought we at least started to talk about tonight. And so that's why I thought this was a conversation worth having. That would be my answer to that. I mean, that's not an easy answer. That's a long, that's not an easy question.
I mean, this is part of what we said before we did this, and we talked about this the other night. We got asked why we don't have the Vanguard on. We don't respect them. Jordan has done some great reporting. Whatever else you feel about his Twitter presence or whatever. So that's somebody who's worth talking to. And at that point, maybe you can start to heal some of this because it is true. Like, look, we're trying to beat the Empire, man. We're trying to take down the Death Star. We do need all hands on deck. So when you got somebody who does valuable journalism and you're having a disagreement about certain things, try to talk it out. If you can't reconcile it, you can't, but you try.
Well, I think it's valuable to know where those divisions are.
Right,
I think we did do a decent amount of that. I mean, I think Ukraine is the most dramatic example of that, which is why I tried to communicate that as best I could. Mescalito, thanks for the $5. I'm sorry, being against funding Nazis to promote nuclear war isn't about ideological purity. Well, exactly. That's a do or die issue. No holding hands with that. And, he brought up, and this is a point I didn't get to make because things get away from you when you're live and, you got 3 people trying to get in points. But he mentioned how I think he referred to climate change as sort of this overarching issue that we need all hands on deck to fight climate change. This stuff isn't going to stop the fires from burning, right? I believe he was referencing that in that way. I view World War III as a similar existential issue, right? And the fact is, so many in this space simply don't. What's more likely to get us in the next 10 years? Climate change or a nuclear bomb? The answer is B, a nuclear bomb, right? And this just sort of casual, Marianne wants to fund Ukraine. I disagree with her. I challenged her, but I still think she's the best one. Why?
Right.
Why?
Right.
What does that say about your politics? Maybe we disagree. He said we disagree. That's fair enough.
Right.
It's fair enough to disagree. But I think we should establish, okay, we have a disagreement. And I think we can have a disagreement without the Putin stand bullshit. Right.
That's
it. What I tried to say.
Well, that's it, because a lot of it is you can't say it's coming from one side; it's coming from both sides.
Right.
Everyone's doing that. Right. Jordan is one of the worst offenders. He wasn't always, but he is now.
Right. Social economic learning with Dr. Donnie. Thanks for the $2. Hit that like button. Yes, folks, hit that like button. I don't even know where we're at in terms of likes, but please do hit that like button. I appreciate that. Karan Sharma. The hell was that? It's like a piece of food in this glass or something. Where the hell did that get there? Anyway, sorry. You should have talked about Marxist communist perspective that RBN has, and there always being a conflict between people like Jordan, who is a social democrat, and RBN. I should have brought that up. Indeed. I mean, I said they talk a lot of substance. That's part of what they talk about.
Exactly.
And they have a real grasp on that theory.
Right.
So I referred to that perhaps too broadly. I probably should have gotten more specific on that point. So thank you. I take that note. Excuse me. Roy Astrietta. Thank you. That's a nice name. For $1.99. Hi, my name is Roy Astrietta. I just subbed. Love it.
We can see what your name is. You're wasting your characters.
You're very proud of that name. It's funny. I didn't even read your super chat. I just read the name. I said that's a nice name, and then you introduced yourself. You wanted to make it known that's your name. Thanks, Abiding. Appreciate the 99 cents very much. Platitude Platypus. Thanks for the $11. Means to an end. Politics will be the end of us all. Honesty can be the only way. There's no excuse for moralizing, finger wagging in the light of a nuclear holocaust. This is another thing that I think is a point I didn't make. One thing that I noticed, I know CJ was talking to me offline about having a comedy background. I know Jimmy obviously has a comedy background. He has a performance background. Russell and I have a performance background. Have an arts background. When you have an arts background, I think truth becomes paramount. Whether that truth is actionable or not, that's paramount. You can't communicate an idea to an audience, whether you're a playwright, a musician, a comedian. You cannot communicate an idea to an audience effectively if you don't believe it with everything you've got.
Right.
And so sometimes that truth is actionable, right? For example, when we all felt the Bernie campaign was the number one issue that we all should be involved with, we all said it. Jimmy Dore was fucking the most militant Bernie supporter on TYT. That was part of the falling out because he didn't vote for Hillary in the final. That was where you saw that rift begin to form. But I think when you come from an arts background, you have to start at, okay, what do I feel and think deeply? And then and then you say, okay, how do we communicate that to the audience? That's not the mindset of an activist. I would concede that. I don't have the mind of an activist. I get uncomfortable when I go to a rally and people start chanting. I'm like, I don't want to do the chant. I mean, I do it.
I have a theory about that. I get uncomfortable at sporting events. I think thousands of years of experience have bred a race of people who just get nervous when crowds get together and start chanting in unity.
For me, it's it's the writer in me. It's a it's a neurotic thing. Like I do the chant. I'm not.
That never ends well for our people.
But if you're at a rally and a chant gets going, there's always something in me that's like, I just feel uncomfortable doing this for some reason, because I have the mind of a writer. I want to be.
Because you're a J-O-O.
J-O-O. When you're coming at it from that creative standpoint, it's harder to conform to those things. And so I think coming from an arts background is different from coming from an activist background. And I think that does inform a lot of it.
I think that's part of why, one of the most common comments we get is, I might not agree with you, but you guys are honest. Because, we're coming from that place where you go on stage and you reveal yourself. You're honest.
That's what you have to do.
You give your truth. That's all you have to give.
Right. And sometimes you can take that and run with it. Sometimes you can't. That's what I said. I said sometimes you just have to sit with a feeling of despair. If that's what you're feeling, then honor it. David Mamet is acting. Invent nothing, deny nothing. Right? Best acting advice you can have. Right? If you're going to do a play and, you're sick that evening, right? You're feeling under the weather. You don't go on stage and try to hide that. Your character is sick that day. Right? In the story, you incorporate that. You deny nothing. At the same time, you invent nothing.
Theories about that.
If you have to cry, let's say a scene calls for you to cry. If you get up there and you're not feeling it, those tears are just not coming. The worst thing you could do is pretend.
People.
If you can't cry, don't invent it either. Invent
people
nothing.
Will sense it.
Right. Invent nothing. Deny nothing. Just go up there, say what's on your mind, say what you feel, communicate that truth. And I think that's where a lot of us, at least with certain backgrounds, come from. That's the attitude we take when we do this.
Well, that's where this has been really a big change for me, because as a director, I send the actors out to be truthful, and I just structure how the world they're going to be truthful within. To be the person talking, that was a big adjustment for me when we started doing this. To not be behind the scenes.
Well, that's why I was terrible at improv comedy, because the writer in me always wanted the scene to go one way, but you have this scene partner who invariably will take it.
You got to let it go.
And you're like, shit, your idea sucks. We should have done my thing. But of course you can't do that. Right? So yeah,
always,
I was terrible.
Always say yes.
Right. Always say yes, but terrible at improv for that reason. Look, a black atheist for $4.99. Thanks for speaking on the library. I put all I had into it and still going. Unholy Rome. Oh, so you're Rome. Hey, Rome.
Oh!
I didn't know that was your...
I didn't know that's who
that was your screen name. But yes, congratulations on the library.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's an honor.
Thank you. Absolutely. Tool Druid for $6.66. I appreciate you two having Jordan on. No one will agree on everything, and I certainly don't with Jordan, but we need to have the discourse. Great work. Thank you, Tool Druid. We appreciate that.
I appreciate the 666, man.
Yeah, Jimmy Living Rent Free says Madeira Ray for the $4.99. Thank you. Tusker, thanks for the $20. Great job, guys. Okay, so this must have come in right after the interview ended. Thank you, Tusker. We appreciate those kind words. Lars and Ruin, $149. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Oh, my dad doesn't want you straighten out the bookshelf. This is my dad, by the way, everybody. I said $10. Just reinforce it in a way that retains its curvaceous splendor. Can you do that?
I mean, you could. You'd have to cut the 2x4s in a way that just braced it like that.
Right. Good show. Enjoy the content. Thank you, Keeper of Tracking. Appreciate that. Very, very much. Thank you all for being here, by the way. If you like this stream, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. We appreciate you all very, very much. For being here. Let's check our sub count, by the way. We are at 99.48. Getting there. Thank you guys.
52 more.
52 more. Then we'll lose a few, and then we'll gain them back, and then we'll make our special. Thanks for getting us the 10K video. Justin Lips Watson, thanks for the $10. There's a video from 2018 of him going on Jimmy's show talking about unserious people taking worst interpretation they say just to smear, plus left-right paradigm is a distraction. Class first.
Well, I watched a video as part of the research where he was making a lot of the arguments in defense of Jimmy Dore. that people make now. And he was criticizing people who made the points about Jimmy Dore that he's making now. I didn't bring it up because right from the beginning, he said he didn't feel Jimmy Dore was the same guy he was 4 years ago. So, okay. So at that time, you felt he was worth defending and not now. I don't think Jimmy Dore has changed. I think the circumstances have changed.
I think that could be. I also think it's perfectly reasonable to change as times change and as trends change and as parties realign, right?
But I'm saying the core of what Jimmy does and the perspective that he has, I don't see a change. I see different stimuli around us.
Right,
we've been through a fucking apocalypse.
Right, that's a good way.
We got a guy who's like 2 days away from an all pudding diet in the White House. This is what Jimmy is responding to. We just went through a pandemic where a lot of pharmaceutical companies, shall we say, took advantage of the situation. And he hasn't been wrong about that, as he hasn't been wrong about a lot of things. So it's different things to respond to. I just actually, I mentioned this on the last show. I had an ex who now actually watched our show and came around and said, I learned some stuff watching your show. So I consider that a win. Don't think you can't ever convert anybody, folks.
Yeah. Right.
No, but she came in saying I had changed. I said, no, I'm exactly the same skeptical, opinionated, obnoxious guy that I've always been, responding to very different circumstances than when you knew me. I would, if the things going on now had been going on 10 years ago, I would have had pretty much the same thing to say about them that I do now. But those things were not going on.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's true. And I think that it's also, a situation where, it was inevitable. Well, it actually wasn't inevitable. Jimmy ended up being the guy who, after that 2016 Bernie campaign, Jimmy was really the only guy who just dug in and said, okay, that's it.
Yep.
Never again with this shit. No matter how good it looks, no matter how much of a chance you think you have, never. And he's stuck there very, very stubbornly. And like I said, there were times where I thought, man, what? Like when he first called out Ryan Grimm, I'm like, what? Ryan Grimm? Didn't he break the Tara Reid story? Like, why are you calling out Ryan Grimm? I don't really get this. I think you're going out on a limb. I don't get where you're going with this.
Yep.
Turns out 6 weeks later, Ryan Grimm is trying to gaslight Shama Sawant about the squad and the railroad. I'm like, oh, I guess you saw something I didn't. There have been a lot of instances like that. Right.
When he came out against the effort to try to change the Democratic Party from within, I said, you know what? I'm not going to say he's wrong, but I feel like we have to run the experiment so that we could say we tried. We left it all on the field. We tried to go that route. I have to try before I can give up on it because we just don't know how that goes. We've never tried. Now we know. So now I have a different opinion. I'm responding to the circumstances as I think Jimmy has. It's just that Jimmy has tended at every turn to be a little ahead of the curve.
Yeah, in ways that, like I said, there are times I didn't see it coming. Another example was the crystal ball thing.
Right.
During the McCarthy forced the vote thing, Crystal Ball did some segment where she was basically agreeing with him, it seemed, and he makes a video and he goes after her. She's saying she's carrying water for the Democrats and she's running cover, and I didn't see it. I'm like, it looks like you're reaching here. I don't get where you're going with this. Turns out a few weeks after that, here she is telling Jordan Chariton people need to grow up and stop criticizing Marianne, and we have a shot with Marianne. And I'm like, well, I guess you saw something there too that I didn't, because who knows?
And that has happened a lot. And in the end, let's say he's wrong about some things. I'm sure he is. Does he need to be? So you're saying that people should be able to disagree without hating each other, but you're constantly throwing all this shade at Jimmy Dore, who's been right more often than he's been wrong.
Right.
So why? I mean, why not follow the same principle that you're preaching? Right. Like, hey, why don't you leave him alone?
Right. Andre 199. Russell, play Iron Maiden so my dad leaves the house.
We need what? I'm not a math person. 118 people to leave.
Yeah, no, don't leave. It ain't worth it. Ain't worth it. We should put another Iron Maiden song on the thing. Another drop.
We should. Who knew we had so many Maiden heads?
Jordan. Sorry, go ahead.
I'll give you the backup that we use for people who are real metalheads.
Gonna burn in hell. I'll burn in hell.
There you go. You got your metal on.
You got the backup. Gave you something. Jordan was projecting hard on multiple leftist channels for the last hour and a half of the show, but I do believe that all three of y'all were coming at the discussion in good faith. It was worthwhile. Thank you, Axel.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Axel.
That very much. Brandon Guillory.
Axel, I would not have
Louisiana.
expected that of you.
Let's go, Brandon.
I expect from you, why the fuck are you not supporting RFK? Was it Israel? Was it Israel?
Yeah, right, exactly. Axel's one of the OG dissident supporters way back from when, no one was watching or listening or whatever.
Yeah, man.
I'm still in denial about the fact that anyone watches the show. Like when someone quotes something back to me that I said, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot people watch this now.
It's very strange.
When we used to record the episodes in advance on the audio, I would always be like, yeah, this is fun, I guess. Nobody's fucking listening, right? But Axel was one of those who listened.
That's right, Twisted Sister. What are you gonna do with your life?
Right, exactly.
I want to rock.
Cake Batter, thanks for the $10. Does Jimmy Dore even have 4,000 listeners in Turner's district? I think, in fairness, not to misrepresent what Jordan was saying, I think what he was saying is that if commentators like Jimmy and, bigger channels in this space than ours, because you had no following at all at that time, if we had spoken better of the Nina campaign, that would have inspired people to go to her district and volunteer, and that may have pushed her over the top. Number one, I don't buy that. And even if I did buy that, listen, if you're not communicating a political vision that makes sense to people, then they're not going to be motivated to support you. She has the same obligations as any other politician has. She has the same responsibility to her movement that any other politician has. And so, if they weren't motivated to do it for whatever reason, then it's a perfectly legitimate choice to say we're not going to. As Jordan sometimes agrees with, apparently. Sometimes he says, I don't blame you if you're done with the Democratic Party.
Right.
But then other times he says, how could you not get involved with Nina Turner? Right.
Hang on. This is really important. Yeah, it's Animal House, but in the classic Twisted Sister video for We're Not Going to Take It, they kind of parodied that scene. So
all right.
It's both. It's both. That's probably the most important thing we've discussed tonight.
Yeah. Martin R., thanks for the $19.99. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. Web Angel again. The way Jordan interrupted you guys, there's no way he could talk to Nick or CJ. Sabby is RBN's best bet to discuss this topic with him right now. I mean, that's up to them if they want to go there. I don't know. I can't really speak to any of that. Like I said, the talking over thing was something I had kind of tried to adjust to as we went on.
Well, Jordan invited us to the Briss, so if Sabby wants to come as our plus one.
Yeah, plus one, yeah, exactly. Eric Torres, thank you for the $10. The part where you guys talked about Ukraine and supporting Nazis and him talking about the rise of fascism domestically without connecting the two was fascinating. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think so too.
I always say fun Nazis at home.
Yeah, right. Fun Nazis at home. Right. Roger Meadows says, don't forget about Rockfin. I had so many chats open. I will check out what's going on over on Rockfin now, actually. Content management. All right, I will get into that here while we're doing this. But thank you, Roger. I appreciate that. Tusker, I was raised on Rush Limbaugh, and now I'm a tanky. Yeah, see, transformation is possible.
All right, if anyone's curious about what a shit lib I was, you can go over to my old channel, my theater channel, End Times Productions. You pick to find time to be a dumbass. That's like, you watch it now, it's like Rachel Maddow sat in with me to write the lyrics.
Right.
It's a very different person then.
All right. I got your chat on Rockfin ready, Roger. So Roger tipped $2 on Rockfin. Guys, my fellow New Yorkers, come on now. Let's stop fighting. Let's come together and push New York State legislature, to put an initiative before us to amend into the New York State Constitution, giving us the option to put our own initiatives on ballots. We can ratify our own amendments into the New York State Constitution. This way we can pass our own laws and amendments for New York Health Act, New York Public Banking, outlaw private equity to own housing. Thank you, Roger. And actually, Roger, are you the same Roger Meadows, I'm assuming you are, who was outside the AOC town hall that interviewed those people out there? I'm pretty sure you are. If you are, get in touch with us, because maybe we can have you on the show to talk about this. And, 19 people will tune in, right?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
What the?
Right? But we'll do it. We'll do it.
Maybe we'll get Twisted
That's
Sister.
the point, right? Yeah, maybe we'll get Twisted Sister, right? Exactly. Dogs for the win, thank you. Illustrating this hypocrisy, Azov, Greenwald never mentioned Azov before 22, and Aaron only mentioned it once. Okay, well, that's kind of when this shit went down, is it not? Right? I mean, there were a lot of people who, perhaps could have been more up on this. It becomes big news when a war breaks out. And Greenwald did a great segment on that New York Times piece. We touched upon it on Jose's show. We went on Jose Vega's show on Wednesday. Yeah, I mean, when the New York Times is forced to admit something, it's been a long time coming. Right. And yeah, I mean, I don't.
Well, there's if you go pre-war, there's plenty of reporting on Ukrainian Nazis and the threat that the Azov battalion represents before you weren't allowed to think it anymore. It's very Orwellian. As soon as you weren't allowed to think it anymore, it went away.
Right. Shit, I lost my place. All right, I hope I didn't miss anybody's chats here. I don't think I did, but I lost my place. Okay, I think we're back. On Twitter, thanks for the win. We do stream on Twitter. Ruthless Criticism. Thank you for the $10. Appreciate that. I'm running behind. All right, let's see how far behind. But what Jordan calls personal conflict is actually disagreement over political line.
Exactly.
It is embodied by personalities, but these are substantive disagreements. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Very well said. The personal right. Just because you put figureheads on it that make it personal and present it as a clash, that doesn't mean that you're not actually talking substance. Right? I mean, it does not mean that at all. What makes the segment is you present it as a clash of personalities, which is conflict. That's why people watch.
Right.
That's why people watch shows for conflict. If there's no tension and there's no conflict, there's no show, right? But those personal conflicts signify deeper political conflicts. We will not cover a gossip story if it doesn't speak to something.
Like that thing, it came up in Jordan's appearance on Vanguard, Illuminati. I looked at that story to see if there was a political angle. There wasn't. We ignored it. We're not going to cover shit like that. Why would we cover that? If we're going to cover that, man, we're going to make the real money, and we're going to do Hollywood gossip, and we're going to slam Disney and Marvel movies. That's how you make fucking money.
That's money, right? Exactly. Rayno, thank you for the $10. Andrew Coffey, a black man in Florida, was found not guilty on the same day as Kyle Rittenhouse. Lefties like Jordan need to stop using blacks as a sword and shield to attack the Second Amendment. All right, well, that's...
like we always say, we have a viewpoint diverse audience.
For viewpoint diverse audience, indeed. Thank you for the donation. Tusker, thanks for the $5. The only benefit to having Nina elected to office would be her acting just like the squad and removing this ridiculous argument from the Social Democratic left.
That wouldn't do it. Then there'd be another one we're supposed to support, and another one, and another one. It'll never end.
Right. Jordan would run.
Vote harder.
Right? Yeah, right. His reason for Ryan Unfinished $4.99. His reasoning for appearing on the Vanguard is also reasoning for Jimmy Dore appearing on Tucker. Yet he smears Jimmy Dore for being right wing. Yeah, man, I think that's a reasonable point. I think that's fair. Yeah. I mean, I just found that whole defense to be kind of baffling.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, then Jimmy Dore's a pothead comedian.
There's too much concept. Well, that's what I said. I said,
there you go.
He presents himself as a pothead. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. I was not expecting that comeback there by saying, yeah, well, Yeah, I'll take my show there. Even though my main beef is that these channels are unserious, I go on literally the most unserious one, the one whose core brand proposition is that they are gossip mongers. And then they're gonna bury my interview under a story about a cartoon getting canceled for abusing people. Yeah, whatever.
I thought that was a cheap dodge.
Yeah. Invite Li Jinping on for a chat interview so that Russell can hear an actual Chinese journalist rather than a North Korean defector like Yeonmi Park.
When Lin Jin grows tits
Jing,
like
sorry.
that, I'll have him on. It's getting late.
Yeah. Got to save some of that energy for the patron-only show. Said before, you guys make more money pissing people off, even if it's your guest. Well, you need to start putting that in the calculus. Strike the balance, amigos. Well, yeah, I mean, this was a first. I mean, we've never really done a show like this where we went in knowing that it could get, a bit antagonistic. KD Nick, after Jordan was let go from TYT under dubious circumstances, Jimmy had Jordan on his show when no one else would. Then Jordan went after Nick Brana for the same thing. Well, That I would have to say. All right, come on. Christ. After Jordan was let go. So look, the accusations against Jordan, I listened to all of it. They did not check out. It's pretty accepted at this point. They did not check out. So I don't want to stir up anything about that. But I do remember. I remember the day before, or maybe it was a couple days before. Nick was interviewed by Jordan in that interview that lasted about 10 minutes before Nick left. I remember Nick going on Jimmy's show and Jimmy speaking highly of Jordan, saying, hey, I think you'll get a good hearing on that. So they seemed to be on good terms up until that point. That's all I remember about that. And I don't know, obviously, anything else beyond that. Meteor Dreams, thanks for the $1.99. The left becoming like Dale Gribble. All right. Is that the Vanguard noise? I don't know what that means, but thank you, Meteor Dreams. KDK7. And we're not, Jordan and Sam Cedar both have a hate crush on Jimmy Dore. They can't let him go. By the way, my line on Yeonmi Park was that, for those who don't know, I think she gives off the vibe of a blow-up doll with a Siri stuck up her pussy. That's my line about Yeonmi Park. And so I'm not interested in hosting Yeonmi Park. I have veto power over certain things, and I will exercise it in that case, okay? I have no...
Hang on. Well, first of all,
desire.
She would never come on our show. But
That's
but
very good.
if we
happy about that.
If we got her, you wouldn't put her on?
No. Not from what I've seen.
I mean,
it's 10:48. You want to talk about this now? We got more super chats.
No, just quickly. I keep saying this. What I've seen with her were critiques of Columbia College.
All right, but
that was how she got on my radar. Beyond
I've seen some clips.
I literally have not even heard her speak about North Korea or China.
Look into the other
Columbia University only.
As George W. Bush,
which
said,
she does compare to North Korea.
Okay,
that's the context in which
I know.
Talk about it.
As George W. Bush said to Hillary Clinton at Donald Trump's inauguration, apparently after Trump got done with his speech, George W. Bush turns to Hillary and says, well, that was some weird shit. That's the way I feel when I watch some of her stuff.
Where did you watch it? Like her Joe Rogan
I've certain
appearance?
stuff on Rogan, and certain clips elsewhere, indeed.
So what does she say? What does she?
All right, listen. I can't get into it right now. I'll talk to you about it later.
Right. Do you want me to start reading?
We're almost
your voice
done.
Sounds a little tired.
Yeah, it's getting a little tired. It's getting a little tired, but that's all right. We'll keep going. We'll keep pressing on.
Do you want me to read?
All right, go ahead. Yeah, you do it. Yeah, why not?
I gave Kyle a super chat when he hit 1 million subs. Why he or Crystal haven't interviewed Shama. Kyle didn't read my super chat. Well, that's not a surprise.
Not a surprise. He did a live stream when he was getting to that million subs. Thank you, Colin. Appreciate you. William Brooks, thanks for the $20. Go ahead, Russell. Sorry.
I sent him a super chat asking him if Marianne was their unicorn, and he wouldn't answer that either.
Kudos for having people. Sorry, go ahead.
Kudos for having on people to challenge our ideas. Thank you, William.
Thank you, William. We appreciate that very much.
photo booth left or heated seat left. Can't decide which is funnier. Thanks, Keaton.
Yeah, the heated. I like heated seat left.
The heated seat left was a good
yeah,
one.
that was good. It was less obvious from the visual. I think that's what made that one work. Photo booth was kind of right there. The heated seat required a little bit of okay.
Yeah.
But thank you, Cortex. We appreciate that. All right, coming down the home stretch here.
Did you guys see the Jimmy Dore show a couple years ago in Brooklyn? No.
It's like about a live show.
Did he do a live show a
podcast?
couple years ago? So
Yeah.
That must have been like right after
I've never
the
been to a live
pandemic.
show. I haven't done anything since my kids were born. I haven't done anything in 4 years. You know, I don't get out much. I wouldn't have it any other way. But that is true.
It's nature's way of sucking the life out of you.
Well, it may be, but it's worth it. Rodrigo Mendez, 199. RBN would be better with less YouTube drama. Love RBN. Watch the show. Watch the show.
Watch it.
Just watch it. Watch it. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised if that's your impression. All right. Did we get through everything? Are we coming in under 4 hours? Wow, we are. Well, that was
damn.
That was quite
and
the marathon.
I really thought the whole show was going to be 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, there we have it for everybody. Thank you guys very much for being here. Some housekeeping just to get through it one more time. Please hit that subscriber button. And please, if you can go to patreon.com and help support the show, we would love for you to do that. You can go to DueDissidence.substack.com and sign up as a paid member or as a free member. It's important to sign up at Substack, whether you can contribute regularly or not. It is free. It helps you keep in touch with us whenever there are live streams coming up. We will drop an alert to you. And paid Substack subscribers and Patreon members get call-in access to these live streams as well as bonus streams, 2 per month that we do, 2 full-length live streams for the patrons. Our 1st of June will be Wednesday, the 14th. Once again, that is Wednesday, June 14th at 8 p.m. And then, assuming we are still in good standing, we will be back on Thursday with Jimmy Dore.
With Mr. Jimmy Dore.
At 8 p.m. We are looking forward to that very, very much.
We're going to ask him why he's riding Jordan Chariton's balls.
Yeah. Right. Just volley this back and forth. Yeah. Right? Why not? keep it going a little bit. But yeah, no, this was a fun stream. It was a lively chat.
Why are you coddling RBN?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Thank you guys all very much for being here. People who do support us, like I said, on Patreon and Substack, get your name up in lights here in the scroll. You also, like I said, get call-in access to these shows as well as supporter-exclusive content. I will be appearing on Victor Tiffany's podcast tomorrow. I believe he streams that live. I don't know where. I will find out, and I will post it on Twitter where I'll be. Victor Tiffany he's the self-proclaimed godfather of the Bernie or Bust movement. Back in 2016, he claims to have coined the phrase. I believe he did coin the phrase. He's still doing some activism. He's still out there, and he's a really fun and entertaining guy. I like Victor very much. I'll tell you how far I've come since we started this show. The first time I met Victor, I did a podcast with him on our show. It was like episode, 11 or 12. I was actually debating him. I actually argued against Bernie or Bust at first in spring of 2019. So people can change, right?
Yep.
And, turns out, no doubt about it, he was right. I was wrong. Right? I mean, there's no doubt about that. So that's not one of my prouder moments in his history. But that was when I first met Victor, and I like him very much. So I'm happy to join him tomorrow at, I believe, 8 p.m. I believe he live streams it. I will find that out, and I will post it to Twitter. So follow us on Twitter, everybody, if you can. And also follow us here on YouTube. We're also on Rumble and Rockfin. Make sure you find at least one alternate platform to follow us on. Don't just follow us on YouTube. We can't keep all our eggs in this basket. This is a very precarious time we're living in as creators. And so if you could find somewhere else to follow us, Facebook, Twitter, Substack, anywhere, Rumble, Rockfin, wherever, please do that. And please do
If
stay in
AOC
touch.
has anything to say about it,
Yeah, we'll be
going to
going.
be in Gitmo.
Right, we'll be gone tomorrow. Exactly. All right, everybody. Thank you guys very much for being here. We want to thank sincerely Jordan Chariton for making time for us this evening, and we will see you all back here Thursday night. Thanks very much, everybody. Very, very kind of you to be here. Be safe and be well.
Courage.
Please clap.